Whenever I watch short form content, I'm often left with a lot of questions. But when I go down in the comments, it seems like I'm the only one. And I don't know if that's because I'm just that type of person. That type of person who's not easily satisfied or who doesn't take the simple answer. Or maybe I'm just fucking nosy. But it's because of that nosiness that I ended up going down a rabbit hole. A rabbit hole that went much farther down than I ever anticipated. A rabbit hole that took me so long to explore. Not only did I bleach my hair, I already had to redo my roots. So that means we got a lot to talk about. But before we can get there, a very quick disclaimer. All of the views, opinions, and speculations stated in this video are wholly my own, based on my own personal research or firsthand lived experience, unless otherwise clearly stated. And it will be clearly stated. And also a trigger warning for grooming, eating disorders, including but not limited to bulimia, self-harm, racism, and all around bad people doing bad things. And we're going to be keeping it as light and as fun, as flirty as possible, and not diving too deep into any one of these topics. But this discussion would be impossible to have without them. So keep yourself safe. The world is hard enough. Don't make it harder on yourself unnecessarily. This video is meant to offer some sort of escapism, a bit of catharsis, if you will. And if it's not doing that for you, step away. But don't worry, we will save your seat for the next time. Okay? Okay. Hi, I'm Persephone. My friends call me Percy, so you can too. How's it going? So I saw a YouTube short saying, fun fact, did you know that they changed the Pretty Little Liars books? Kind of. He didn't actually say that. This is Chris Reed's books. He has a 2-minute video that actually does a really good job, clearly and concisely stating about how the original ebook of Pretty Little Liars was changed to include things like TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, and he speculates to be more convenient for younger readers. And he stresses the importance of owning physical media, so that way your favorite books can't be changed 20 years down the line. To which I completely agree. But I saw this short at 2 a.m. and I panicked a little. It raised my hackles because what do you mean they're changing books? What do you mean? I've only seen one person talk about it. What do you mean that this is just a, hey, this is why? Why is no one more panicked about it? We can't be okay with this. We can't keep letting them get away with this. This is not okay. I panicked, so to say. So much so that I was actually in the middle of doing a different video, completely different video. But suddenly, every time that I went to pick up that book, this was all I could think about. I could not get this out of my head. I couldn't shake this, this panic feeling of, why is everyone okay with this? Why is anyone okay with this? All I could think about was, who did this? Why? When? More importantly, who benefits from it? This takes man hours. This isn't cheap to do. Someone thought it was worth the cost. Who? Why? And what is their ROI? For better and for worse, I'm really a poorly trained dog with a bone. So the next morning I went and bought the ebook and immediately turned my Kindle onto airplane mode just in case. So I'm fudged and irritated. So my Kindle is updated to firmware 5.19.2, which means I can't jailbreak it, which means I can't download my copy of Pretty Little Liars, which is really frustrating. I hate that I can buy a book and then not download it and not keep it anywhere else besides this designated spot under the guise of convenience. Because at this point I didn't know when the book was edited, and if one person had started talking about it online, maybe another person, and then another, and then maybe for either good PR or for social pressure, maybe they would change it back. And well, then this video would be dead in the water. And it was at this point that I noticed the first really weird thing. The Amazon listing. Kind of funky. Not quite right. Because when you're on the ebook version of the listing, it says that this version of the book was published in 2009, which that can't be true. And so then I thought maybe the Amazon listing was pulling information from the paperback. Okay, but the paperback was published in 2006. Okay, so maybe the original ebook was published in 2009. that makes more sense. But then you check the ISBN, and the ISBN on the listing does not match the ISBN on HarperCollins' website that's listed for the most recent version of the ebook. And please keep this image in mind for the end of the video. This is a very important image. Please and thank you. Okay, so maybe the ebook was published in 2009. That makes sense. But then I scroll down to the product information, and the ISBN on the listing for the ebook does not match what is listed on the HarperCollins website for the most recent version. Again, weird. So I checked the paperback listing, and that paperback ISBN matches what's on the HarperCollins website, but that ISBN is no longer under the Pretty Little Liars collection at all. It's actually listed under the HarperCollins teen imprint by itself, while the new version is under the HarperCollins imprint with all of her sisters instead. Okay, and I actually only found the yellow paperback ISBN by chance, because it showed up in a Google search that I can't remember what I was searching for at this point, because I couldn't find a listing for this at all originally on the HarperCollins website. It's weird. It's just weird. It's just weird. So that same day, 2 a.m., I buy the book. That morning, hey, the listing is funky on Amazon. That afternoon, I decide I'm going to go to my local library and I'm going to see if they have a copy from 2006 of the original Pretty Little Liars. And my library didn't have it. And I don't mean that it was out on loan. I mean they didn't have it. Period. They had the original for the other, 17-ish? Half of them were like on loan. Half of them were there in person that I could see firsthand. But book 1 had been replaced with the revamped version and only electronically. No physical copies at all. Now, I don't know how your libraries work. In the San Francisco Bay Area, our libraries are broken up by counties, then by cities. County, city. And then your card is assigned by county. So you have access across many cities. Super easy, super convenient. Now, I have been in the Bay my entire life, so that means I have multiple library cards from multiple different counties. And I couldn't find the frickin' book. I couldn't find it. I could only find digital copies of the new version, but plenty of physical copies of all of the other ones. And because of all the weird mismatched information on the Amazon listing, I wasn't fully confident of which copy or which version would have shown up if I had ordered through Amazon. At this point, I was like, what the fudge is going on? Like, I know this book is old. It's 20 years old. But it's not popular. It's number 53 on Amazon's teen mystery section. It's 180 for teen contemporary romance. And that's just for book 1, mind you. But the first 8 in the series are all in, like, the top 200 for both of those categories. The digital version is number 17 in teen friendship. And I don't know about you, but to me, that sounds like a popular book series. So where the fudge is it? Sorry, it's really hot, but I have to keep the jacket on because it's the only thing that I own that resembles that it was from 2009. Okay, sorry for the inconsistency. Back to what we're talking about. I am well aware, and I encourage you, dear reader, to patron your local libraries. They are so important. They're such an important aspect to the community, and they are so valuable in keeping knowledge accessible. And if they don't have a book that you want, you can go up to any librarian and ask, hey, can you order this for me? And if they have the budget and the ability, they're probably going to be like, hell yeah, because they want you to use their services. However, notice I said ability, because for this video, that posed a very interesting question. Because a library cannot order you a book that might not be in print anymore. And I cannot, for certain, tell you if this book is still in print or not. Trust me, I tried, but I kept coming up with unreliable answers from day to day. It's, I guess, one benefit of this video taking me so long that every time I would look on the HarperCollins website, every time I went to a separate website like Target, Barnes & Noble's, Walmart, there's another one, I'd either get a 404 error, I'd get a not in stock error, or I would, there would just be nothing for me to click on. So, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Maybe it's in print, and once they run out, there's a bit of a break until they can ship out a new batch. That's really all I can guess, but I don't know. And I tried calling HarperCollins, but no one ever answered my phone call or called me back. So I don't know. I don't know of another way to find out if this is in print or not. So my next option was to go try to find it secondhand, which normally I have a lot of luck with doing, of buying books from like used bookstores, but I couldn't find one. Like I said, it's a popular book. So what I had to end up doing was I had to go to my local indie bookstore and ask them, can you please find a copy of this book for me through your online portal, and can you tell me what year it was printed, and can you order me that one, please? That's how I got this, which was printed in 2007 specifically. And all of these steps felt like a lot. I went to a lot of different stores. I clicked on a lot of different websites. I asked a lot of different people, and I couldn't guarantee I would get that book right there. Which feels odd for a popular book. Feels like a lot of extra effort for a popular book that I still see occasionally do rounds on social media. So what the fudge is going on? And then the more I thought about it, and the more I was looking to see online, and I realized I haven't heard anyone talk about this revamp other than Chris Reed's books. That's weird. I ingest a lot of book content. What are you talking about? So I put into a few different search bars. I put Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and whenever I came across someone talking about the Pretty Little Liars book series, it was always the iconic yellow cover. No one is talking about the revamp. Even Sarah Shepard, the author, when she posts this book online, she still uses this cover. What? It's either that or she's using the Pretty Little Liars logo from the TV show, but not the new cover. So what's that about? And as I scrolled through more shorties about this, I really only ever saw the yellow cover. And if I saw people talking about the revamp, I didn't see the purple and pink cover. All I saw was this photo that Chris also used in his video that was originally posted on Twitter, who I will not call X, of the TikTok line from book 1. But no one is asking questions. People just have the photo and are like, did you know they changed it? Like and subscribe. What do you mean? What do you mean? So the more I looked into this, it just felt like I never came up with answers. I just kept unearthing more and more questions no one else was asking. So, in an attempt to find answers myself, I read them. Both of them, and I marked down every single change that happened between the two. So let's start with the first answer I got. When? This version came out in 2022. Easy answer. I got an answer based on the copyright date at the very, very back of the ebook. Scrolled all the way to the back. It has all of the information, including the ISBN number. So, using that as a jumping off point, I went back in time to try to find some sort of announcement. Any sort of announcement. I scrolled through Sarah Shepard's Instagram. Nothing. I checked the HarperCollins and the Harper Teen website and socials. Nothing. I scrolled through all of their social media. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, back 2 years. Nothing. No announcement, no congratulations, no anniversary, nothing. But we got a year. And with that year in mind, I went and checked, when did Pretty Little Liars Original Sin come out? Because that felt about 4 years ago. And yeah, 2022. So now we're getting somewhere. So with that year in mind, I went back and checked the PLL and PLL Original Sin official Instagram accounts and TikTok accounts, and nothing. I checked hashtags in case it was like a more low-key announcement, something more community-driven. Nothing. I went to check, does Sarah Shepard have a website? No. I went and checked her Instagram again, just in case. This time focusing on what she posted around the release date of Pretty Little Liars Original Sin specifically, and I found it. And I found the reason why I didn't find it the first 3 freaking times. Because it's barely an announcement. Quote, the PLL books are getting a new look. Not sure when these are hitting shelves. I'm sorry, I sound like such a asshole. Okay, quote, the PLL books are getting a new look. Not sure when these are hitting shelves, probably around the time hashtag PLL Original Sin on at HBO Max premieres, but inside it's a small update as well. I went through the pages for you, and no longer do Spencer and the others use sidekicks, blackberries, trios, and other funds that don't exist. A small update for modern times, in parentheses, but don't worry, their stories are still the same and A is still vicious, close parentheses. What do we think? There will be new covers for Perfect and Unbelievable as well. Hashtag PLL Edit, hashtag PLL, hashtag Pretty Little Liars, hashtag Sarah Shepard. It got 3K likes, which is a lot. Do not misinterpret me. It's just not an announcement in the sense that this isn't marketing. What are you talking about? This isn't a post that would make people mark their calendars. It's going to make people get excited for, ooh, my favorite is having a new cover for a collection for anything. It doesn't even show the full cover of the book, which is how I missed it the first 3 times I checked. For my listeners, the Instagram post only has one photo, not a carousel, and it is split down the middle, each side showing one half of the cover for book 1 and book 2. Yeah, no crap, I was gonna miss it. What are you talking about? Now, I've been on the internet a very long time. I'm very old, and I like to think I have a pretty good grasp on when something is a contractual obligation, even if it illegally does not say so. But when I found this post, finally, I wasn't sure what I was looking at. I couldn't tell, because this post says, quote, a small update for modern times, end quote, implying that it's an update for new, modern readers to get to enjoy the story that they might have missed. But one post on an author's Instagram, where most of her established readers already are, a post that does not funnel to any other information, like when, where, how you can buy the book, does not an announcement make, in my opinion. And I don't think that's that controversial to say. It doesn't even show what the full cover looks like, so if you were to come across it naturally, you would see it from afar being like, wait, that's the new thing, that's the book I want to get. Like, nothing. This does not read to me as an effective way to reach new readers. This felt like, to me as someone with eyes, in my opinion, as a cross-promotion for the new, at the time, show, Pretty Little Liars Original Sin. But if that was the case, why is it not mentioned anywhere else at all? And yes, I scrolled through each one of these hashtags on this post and any other variant that I could possibly think of, and I could not find any other post from anyone that showed these new books. I scrolled so long that Instagram started looping on itself, and nothing. I started looking to see if someone had posted it in like a book haul or something. Nothing. I couldn't find anything. And that's where I kind of hit a dead end. So, with 2 weeks worth of research summarized in under a single page in my script, we found the one, and nothing else. Then it became time to try to find the what. So what was changed? I ended up reading the ebook first for a couple of reasons. One, I never read this book before. I wanted to see if the change was noticeable. Could I see the seams if I didn't know that a change had happened? If I'd come onto this as a stranger, would I be able to tell? And 2, I had to wait for that guy to come all the way from Tennessee, and it took about 2 weeks. So could I see the seams? Yes and no. Yes, when they were obvious, they were glaringly obvious, ridiculously obvious. But, spoiler alert for later in the video, there were plenty of things that I did not notice were missing or even occurred to me that would have been changed when I went back and read the original. So, but we will get there. This section, on the other hand, this section isn't going to be a full breakdown just yet, which might feel a little weird, but just trust me, it makes a lot more sense this way. In this section, I'm going to take you through some of the most egregious changes, the loudest changes, and then later on, I'm going to take you through every juicy detail. So that way no one is left with any lingering questions. Okay. If you don't know the plot of the Pretty Little Liars books, book 1 basically equals episode 1 of the show. And if you don't know the show, I can't help you. Okay, you're going to have to wait till later in the video. So we open with all of the girls having a sleepover the last night of 7th grade and the first day of summer vacation. Here we meet all of our girls: Spencer, Hannah, Emily, Arya, and Allison, who will go missing by the time the night is up. In this chapter, we also get to meet Mona, who will become Hannah's best friend, but in chapter 1, she is our first example of a glaring change. As the girls are on their way over to Spencer's house for the sleepover, Mona calls out to them, quote, "You guys want to come over and watch this cool TikTok I found? This guy is doing a challenge where he eats bugs." End quote, page 5. A TikTok, one TikTok, a single TikTok. Not a YouTube video. Not film a TikTok with me. Not even scroll TikTok with me. Do you want to come over to my house and watch a single TikTok? Girl, send it to me. I will watch it on the toilet later. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You want me to go all the way to your house to watch something that's a minute long at most? It's a TikTok. Show it to me right now if it's that pressing. We're both standing here. What are you talking about? And this is the change that everyone shows that photo about that we talked about earlier in the video, because it really does jump scare you with how weird and out of left field it seems. It's such a how you doing, my fellow youth type moment that it kind of pissed me off more than I thought it was going to. That's not surprising. That's why we're here. But genuinely, I was like, this is bull crap. This is such bull crap, man. And it took me a long while to figure out why this pissed me off so much and why exactly this feels so out of left field. And as I give you more examples, I want to know if you can guess in the comments down below, why does it feel wrong? What about this is so uncanny? Without the context that this was originally supposed to be published in 2009, I want you to imagine this is a book from 2022. And trust me, it's still gonna feel weird. And I want you to tell me why. Why does it still feel weird? Please and thank you. So, Mona screams out to them. They run away. Okay. They're hanging out. Allison goes missing that night, as the prophecy foretold. And after she's missing, over the next 3 years, the girls slowly grow apart and stop being friends. And we start the book. That was technically a prologue. This is technically chapter 1, whatever. But we start the book picking back up with Emily when someone moves into Allison's old house across the street from her. At the prodding of her mom, she goes over and she ends up making friends with / getting a crush on the pretty girl across the street. Now, this is where we get our second reference to social media. Emily's big sister is, quote, lounging comfortably on the lazy boy in the den, watching some animal videos on YouTube, end quote, page 20. Now, I know, not everyone is a YouTube girly, okay? Not everyone has lived through the generations and the evolutions that the content creators and that the site has gone through over the years. I completely understand that. But I have. And personally, when you say some animal videos on YouTube, I get transported back to 2010. And the reason for that is that every single social media website has a language. And like with any language, if you're going to use specifics and you're going to stick it into Google and hit translate, it's going to come out a little wonky on the other end. All right. More about that in a second. Don't worry. I have a whole bit. I needed to point it out. I couldn't leave it out of this section because I needed to know if I told you some animal videos on YouTube, what does that make you think of? Anyway, back to Emily's gay neighbor, Maya. She is from California, and her walls are covered in posters. Quote, they were mostly of bands. Doja Cat, Billie Eilish, Adele, end quote, page 25. None of those are bands, babe. Also, Doja and Billie, sure, I could see those being on the same wall, especially for a queer teen. But Adele? Now I know, don't yell at me. I know she's a gay icon, okay? Don't get me wrong. It just still feels a little off. See, in 2022, her most recent album was 30, which came out in 2021. So I can see it being at like the front of the brain for I need to make this reference at this time. But if I remember correctly, that album had a lot of adult themes on it, like divorce, which I don't know about you, but I don't know a lot of teen girls who are listening to music about divorce and being a mother and going through these later in life changes. You know what I mean? Like, something about that doesn't feel right, okay? So once again, it just feels a little off. Not horribly off, just like a little off. And also, like, happy Pride, by the way, from your Bye Thea from San Francisco, Bay Area. Happy Pride. But correct me if I'm wrong. Please do. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But isn't she an icon for gay men? Is she also an icon for lesbians in the same way? I feel like someone would take my gay card. I don't know. Anyway, Emily runs away. Emily, she doesn't realize the gay connection in the moment, and she refuses to acknowledge that she's gay, so she runs away from the hot girl, as we all are known to do from time to time, okay? The true gay experience. Next, we meet Arya, who is coming home after a few years abroad in Iceland with her family. She ends up taking her brother to lacrosse tryouts. That's how she ends up hanging out at a college bar where she meets an older guy named Ezra, and they make out in the gross bathrooms. No major changes noted. I'm just mentioning her so that when I bring up later that she's sleeping with her teacher, you guys aren't jump scared, okay? Next, jump to Hannah. She is in the mall with Mona, her best friend, like I said, and they are gossiping. Quote, drinking red wine, comparing TikTok to Snapchat, in parentheses, no comparison, close parentheses, end quote. Page 42, these things are not comparable. They do not serve the same function other than making it convenient for pedophiles to talk to children, allegedly, in my opinion. What are you talking about? Not only that, but who the frick does that? Comparing social media sites. And I mean, maybe I could see someone doing it because everyone does have their own preferences for content consuming, for social media site engaging. Everyone has their preferences. But in my almost 30 years, wish me happy birthday, by the way, it's later this month, but in my almost 30 years, 19 of which I have spent online, it doesn't feel like a natural thing to do. It doesn't, okay? Not without the heavy context of comparing a singular aspect. I prefer scrolling on TikTok. Instagram is better for recipes. I prefer TikTok for my news consumption. I do YouTube when I'm folding laundry, you know what I mean? One for something. But to compare them as a whole doesn't make sense. They're used for different things. What are you talking about? It just doesn't feel like a natural thing to do. You know what I mean? But I also wasn't drinking red wine at the mall at 16, so maybe I'm in the wrong. But at the mall, these girls finish their wine and they decide to go on a 5-finger shopping spree, stealing jewelry from Tiffany's. Next, we meet Spencer. She is with her family. They're out to dinner and they are about to meet her sister's boyfriend. Her family sucks. There's nothing really else to say there. No obvious changes. So those are it for girls. And as we follow them through the story, there are other moments where I clocked a massive change. But if I didn't read the original, I wouldn't have been able to tell you what the change was. For instance, next we see Emily. We see her getting ready for swim practice, and in her locker, she has a sticker of Lily Reinhart. Okay, safe to assume that she probably had a sticker of another actress. Riverdale is actually mentioned a few times throughout the book, and okay, safe to assume that it's just replacing an older show. Or how Emily ends up walking Maya home one day to show her a shortcut through the houses, and they walk by a patch of grass where Emily remembers hooking up her phone to a Bluetooth speaker, and her and Allie would hang out and have dance parties. Okay, it was just probably a normal speaker. Or another example, Arya's brother, on their way to school the next day, is playing on his Nintendo Switch. Safe to assume it could have been any other handheld console, like a 3DS or pss. At this point, I was like halfway through the book, and I thought maybe there was going to be nothing else for me to talk about. Like, sure, all of these changes feel weird, and some of them feel really out of place. But that would be it. And the entire video, it would just be me going, hey, look at that. Weird, weird, weird. And that's not really my style. And like, the more I read, the more it felt like just like this weird half-butt attempt to sound young and hip, which is annoying, but it's not a crime in this context. Anyway. But then we got to the second half of the book, which all takes place basically over one weekend, starting on Friday night. Spencer, through her test scores, was able to make her parents let her move in alone into the guest barn house that they have on the property. And she is stoked. Quote, she'd organized all of her books according to author, set up her surround sound, reset Netflix to her preferences, and even entered her password into Acorn, the app that showed all of her favorite British mysteries. It was perfect. End quote. Page 172. And this is where I started to get pissed off again. This is where it started to feel like a wink to camera every time a change happened. Sure, maybe no one knows what Acorn is, but we're not stupid. You could assume that because it's being listed next to Netflix, it's a different type of streaming service. That's not hard to put together. And if someone really was curious, they could just tap and put it into any one of their million devices. But I think it's safe to say that most people would assume it's a type of streaming service because it's being listed next to Netflix. And speaking of Netflix, so you don't reset your preferences. What are you talking about? That's not how Netflix works. You set up a profile, and that profile keeps track of your preferences, but you don't have to set them up. You just start watching something. And not only that, but setting up a profile is something that a proactive teen like Spencer would have already done on the family TV, if not her own fucking laptop. I wouldn't be shocked if she had her own Netflix account, you know? What are you talking about? But okay, Spencer spends her Friday night at home. Cut back to the other 3 girls, who instead of spending their Friday night at home are at a field party. Hannah is trying to get laid, Emily is trying to make up with her boyfriend, and Arya is fantasizing about Ezra being overcome with jealousy. Let's start with Emily, because that's the smallest change. She got in a fight with her boyfriend, but she gets picked up by her boyfriend to go to this party, and when they get there, she sees other girls, quote, taking group selfies or being glued to their phones, end quote, page 180. Again, something that was probably changed, even though I can't identify why. The phrase being glued to their phone, it feels like an old person phrase, and I simply refuse to elaborate further. We have more things to cover. Next is Arya, who also has minimal changes, but important ones. She talks about her phone a lot and that it beeps, which again just feels like a weird way to talk about an iPhone. Even with the sounds on, something that most teens wouldn't have, I would not describe an iPhone as beeping, ever. I would say they tend more towards chirping or chiming, even, if you're feeling fancy. Example A. I have to take my meds. Now, how do I know it's an iPhone? Easy, because when Ezra does call her for a booty call, he tells her how to get to his house, gives the address, if you will, and she pretends to not know, she pretends to be taking notes, and she pretends that she hadn't already looked up his address on Maps, which is the Apple navigation app. Also, I just realized, you wouldn't tell someone how to get to your house. You would just give them the address because everyone has Maps or Google Maps or Waze or a third one. Everyone has a navigation on their phone. What? Anyway, the Maps thing. Maps. Again, another tiny detail, just like the beeping, that shouldn't matter. But it does. It just feels a little off. And it feels off because I have an iPhone. I use Maps. I use both Google Maps and Apple Maps because they both suck. But I have an iPhone. And if someone told me that my phone beeped, I'd be like, what are you talking about? No, it doesn't. And my text tone is the Kim Possible sound effect. Call me, beep me, if you want to reach me, as they say in the streets. And I still would not say that my phone beeps. Bars. That was stupid. Lastly, Hannah. At that same party, she is trying to sleep with her boyfriend who has recently taken a virginity pledge, even though he is not religious. He tells her he's not ready and that she needs to respect herself more, which pisses her off. Which, under different circumstances, would also have pissed me off, because that is usually a phrase used to put women down and to shame them for being sexual in any way. But he is right in this case, because the reason why she wants to sleep with him is for her own validation. She only wants to have sex with him to prove that he finds her more beautiful than any other girl. Something he says and tells her a few times kind of actually throughout the book, but she can't hear it at that point. We'll get into it. Don't you worry, I'm not just glazing over that. We'll get there. But this pisses her off so much. And after he leaves her there, he goes off, strips down, goes swimming with the boys, as boys are known to do. She gets more drunk, and she ends up finding his keys, and in a drunken state, decides it's a good idea to steal his dad's car, a BMW M550i, presumably from 2022, because these families got shmoney. Now, why do I bring up the make and model and year of the car? Because Hannah drunkenly has a hard time putting the key in the ignition and turning the car on. And this was the start of my crash out. Okay. Because what do you mean that an expensive modern car in 2022 has a key you have to turn? You're trying to tell me in this town of the wealthy, where these people have modern cars, where these kids go to private school, where these kids these families can afford to not only buy their kid a car, but to pay for the classes for them to get their license at 16. You're telling me that these families, who this car belongs to, this car that is his dad's shiny new car, it's a flex that he was allowed to bring it. It's a big deal that he let his son drive it. This nice new car has a key you have to insert and turn. Does it have a freaking window crank too? What are we talking about here? What are we talking about? You have to turn. What are you talking about? I have not stopped talking about this key turning and this ignition bullcrap for over 2 months. I wish I was getting my partner knows about this book as the book with the key. Not the book with the missing girl, the book with the key. I've brought this to every single freaking person. Every single person in my life knows about this goddamn key. That's how much it pissed me off. That's how much this bothered me. I went and found a used BMW M550i from 2019 for sale in my area, just to get photos of the interior, just to prove that this model of car was not originally made with a key-turn ignition, let alone a model from 2022. And I don't want to hear a single freaking comment about how, oh, you should have used ChatGPT to research this. Oh, this would have gone so much faster with ChatGPT. Oh, you're talking so much longer. You should have just put it into chat and it would have told you. Shut the frick up. ChatGPT is not this freaking petty, nor this freaking thorough. God. I need you to know that if this car was closer to me, I would have lied and said I was buying a car. I would have organized a test drive and I would be delivering this rant from that driver's seat. But alas, it's like an hour and a half away. And I didn't want to do that. It's too far. If you take nothing else from this video, I want you to at least take this. How much this gosh darn key pissed me off. And I'm still pissed about it. I'm still bringing it up to anyone new that I come across who will let me info dump about the current thing that I'm researching. If you take nothing else, I hope that's my legacy. Anyway, the crash out doesn't end there. The next morning, Arya is back at home and she has a bad dream where she hears, quote, "It wasn't her family's normal doorbell chime. It was I'm the Bad Guy by Billie Eilish." End quote, page 228. Not Bad Guy by Billie Eilish, the actual name of the song. No, quote, I'm the bad guy, end quote, as if it has a freaking government name. Then she wakes up from this dream and then she goes downstairs and she asks her dad, quote, "Can ghosts send DMs?" Her father looked up, surprised and confused. "What's a DM?" End quote, page 230. This man is what, 40, 45 in 2022? That's a millennial, my guy. He's a professor at the local liberal arts college and he's sleeping with a grad student. He knows what a DM is. He sent some, I'm sure. And also, this is like a much smaller thing that like pissed me off. She hasn't received a single DM none of them have. This entire book. Why is that the change you made? What are you talking about? Like, this book wants to acknowledge the existence of social media, but it refuses to interact with it at all. It all just feels so freaking lazy. Just so lazy. And if you're gonna charge people money, you can't be freaking lazy about it. Come on, have standards. And then the next chapter, back with Hannah. She's back at the police station because she stole a car. She meets another guy there. He's drunk, in handcuffs, and he asks for her name. Quote, "What's your name?" He jingled his cuffs. Haley. Like hell she was gonna give him her real name. "I'm Justin," with a wink. Hannah shuddered. Was he implying that he was Justin Bieber and she was his wife, Haley? Ew. End quote. Page 239. You don't need to explain the joke. You don't need to explain the joke. You don't need to explain the reference. And I could have forgiven the choice to use Justin and Haley Bieber, a man who is like has a reputation of never publicly wishing well on his wife. To use that as your flirting tactic, it's just a weird choice for everyone involved. I get that. But then a mistake was left in. A mistake was left in the same chapter. Quote, "It looks like something big," said Brad, the drunk trespasser sitting next to her. End quote, page 243. Brad. The original chapter had Hannah give the name Angelina, which is something I guess without even like reading the original, but proof. Quote, "Hey Angelina," he said, "I'm Brad." Hannah cracked a smile at how lame the line was. End quote, page 239. I also don't fully understand why she made her more creeped out about him in the revamp versus the original. It's a weird change to make because it feels out of place because she's not creeped out or worried about him in the rest of the chapter. But here she's like, ew, what are you talking? No, stop. What are you talking about? Versus the rest of the time she's really unbothered by him. Odd. It was just odd. And it highlights the mistake more, unfortunately. It was in this moment. The Brad, Angelina, Justin, Haley moment where it finally clicked what was wrong. Because you see, Pretty Little Liars is a period piece. Prove me wrong. You can't. Because I've thought about it too much. What makes a period piece, according to Masterclass? Quote, "A period piece is a film or TV series that takes place in or strongly evokes an earlier time period," end quote. Now, this is usually used for things way in the past. Think Greco-Roman era, the American Civil War, the British Regency era, etc., etc. Those are all great examples. But they can cover any time period that can be easily defined by its cultural context. And 2006, while it is still close enough to not have like an official era defined by historians, although I have heard some people call it the McBling era, 2006 still counts as its own definitive time period. For this, we will simply refer to it as the early 2000s. And no, it's not Y2K. Y2K started in the 90s and ended by 2003. This is Y2K's, like, little sister. Similar, but definitely different. She grew up to be something different. Now, why is this important, defining what a period piece is? Because Pretty Little Liars is a keystone piece of media from the 2000s through the 2010s. Even now, one might say. Because it is one of the first major pieces of media to use cell phones in the anonymity that they can grant someone as a major plot device, second only Gossip Girl. PLL, as the girls say, to this day is still used as a reference point when it comes to writing the genre of teen dramas. But the show is based on the premise, the characters, the plot, the story from these books. They are a part of the same franchise, and so they are a part of the same conversation. And this story cannot exist outside of this time period, because the second you try to take this story and place it in the modern day, it starts to fall apart. I mentioned earlier that the revamp of the story loves to mention modern day social media, but refuses to engage with it. And that's because the second that you open that can of worms in a story like this, it comes with a lot of questions. The first and most obvious one being, where's Allie's phone? It's never mentioned that the police are using her phone to try to geolocate the last place where she was alive. It's never mentioned that they're using her socials to try to find out who she was interacting with. It's never mentioned to be missing at all. And once you start thinking about her phone, then you start thinking, well, wouldn't the girls be sharing locations with one another? We know at least two of them have iPhones, so it's like built in. Does anyone have her location? And if you think for a second that Allie would not be sharing her location because she loves secrets so much, au contraire, she absolutely would be sharing location, but never with all of them at the same time. It would only be with some of them, sometimes, only when she wants to make them feel special. Okay, so who was the last person to have it, and when was it turned on, and when was it turned off? How long does she go before turning it on? Did she give one of her friends her location more often than others? And who was the last person to have it and why? Our entire life and all of our secrets exist on this thing. We are cyborgs, for better and for worst. We are in constant communication with one another. I only talk to 2 people outside my family, and I have to make sure when I am filming that this is on Do Not Disturb, because it will go off. Because if someone doesn't call me, it's a spam call. It's an Instagram notification that I didn't ask for yet. It's given to me anyway. It's a YouTube notification. It's my vocabulary app. It's my Pokemon Sleep telling me, hey, your guy's hungry. You should feed them. You know what I mean? We are being pinged constantly. And Allie, who is someone obsessed with secrets and who is constantly connecting with someone for something, who everyone knows and who everyone wants to talk to, her phone would be a treasure trove. So where is it? And what about her social handles? What grown man does she have on Snapchat? Who's on her close friend story? Who is she interacting with in the DMs? What's her Finsta? Does she have a Finsta? Does she run an anonymous, like, Dumois for Rosewood? And now we've made it back to Gossip Girl. And what about the other girls' social medias? Oh my goodness. Do you think the it girls of the schools didn't have socials that they were keeping up with before Allie's disappearance? And what about how does the relationship with social media change after Allie's disappearance as they slowly defrost and become who they want to be and not who Allie was forcing them to be? You think Hannah doesn't look at other women's faces just how their bodies are better than hers? Marin doesn't have an unhealthy relationship with Instagram or Pinterest or Facetune? You think Emily, I Secretly Love Women Fields doesn't have a TikTok for her unbeknownst gooning that she says is for sports highlights? Or what about Aria, I'm too artsy to function Montgomery? She doesn't have an Instagram account that's slowly morphed into a photography page? Or a Pinterest for inspiration? You think she's not staying up late under her covers watching DJ live streams of the Icelandic parties that she is obsessed with and misses desperately? You think Spencer IFB better than everyone Hastings doesn't have a chess.com profile? And I can hear you. Percy, you're thinking too hard about this. And I am. But how can I not? When these girls are so well written that I know what their non-existent but constantly referenced to socials would look like. How can I not? But we can't bring any of that into the story. We simply can't without completely completely tearing it apart and reconstructing it from the ground up, because once you add in social media, once you add in modern capabilities of smartphones like location sharing that are incredibly normalized, it makes the mystery harder to write. It just does. And it makes a lot of their behaviors not make sense, like the key turning. But by the story constantly acknowledging the existence of said social constructs, I am constantly being asked to acknowledge the existence of the gaps that they make in the story. Gaps that feel second nature. Things that I wouldn't normally think about in my everyday life until they're brought to my attention, and then suddenly it just feels wrong. It feels uncanny. Because of cultural context. Because not only is each social media site a whole language all on its own, but they each have their own dialect, and each age group on that site has its own sub-dialect. And if you're not fluent, it shows. The world has gone through a lot of huge jumps over the past 20 years, and how we exist and interact in that world has also changed in unprecedented ways. And things we couldn't have imagined 20 years ago have become second nature. And this story tries to exist in the modern day without doing the work to catch up to 20 years of context outside of the occasional name drop. And unfortunately, without that context, it makes this feel like a soulish cash grab who doesn't know whose cash it's trying to grab, if I'm being honest. It wants to be accepted by the youth while continuously talking down to them by explaining the joke or explaining the reference. The mere existence of this revamp as it currently stands loves to patronize the audience it is simultaneously asking money from. The changes that were made as they stand, as someone who lived through those 20 years of cultural context, it reads to me that Sarah Shepard thinks that modern audiences are too stupid to read the original story and need a dumbed down version for them to stay engaged and to understand the story. As if modern audiences couldn't relate or doesn't know how to look up a reference that they might not understand, or that they can't understand or wrap their heads around when something is not explicitly spelled out for them or written for them. And yes, there is a time and place to have the conversation around the fall of media literacy. But this is not it. Not when you're asking full price for a book that only has half a day's worth of effort put into it. Are you kidding me? Hold forward.
Hi, dear.
Hi.
Oh my goodness.
No.
So
Get out of here.
just a little gloved hand peeking out. I didn't see your picture.
Well, now I'm not as bad. Okay. This book is asking for the hard-earned money of a younger generation whose money has historically been weaker than any generation before it. It is hard to read the digital copy of this book and not have it leave a bad taste in my mouth. I'll be completely honest. So I reached out to Sarah Shepard for comment to ask her about all of this. Everything that I just listed to you. She doesn't have a public-facing email, not one that I could find, nor does she have a website. There is a publishing house called Sarah Shepard Publishing, but I think it's safe to assume that that's not her, considering this is published through HarperCollins. So I did the next best thing. I DM'd her on Instagram. Feels appropriate. Quote, Dear Miss Shepard, I am Persephone Quill, a small YouTuber and aspiring indie author. I am working on a deep dive on the Pretty Little Liars series, and I was hoping to ask you a few questions about the modern-day revamp of the first 4 novels in 2022. I can't find any articles or interviews that mention the revamp happening, and I was wondering if you're willing and able to answer some questions. 1. What was the driving force behind the decision to do a modern-day revamp instead of a tangential novella or a one-off sequel to the series? 2 of the 18 books are sequels and one-off novellas, by the way, which is why I asked, because she has a history of doing these things. Question 2. Were you the one who decided on the redesign of the covers for the first 4 books to capitalize on the new show coming out? Or was that a group decision in promotion/preparation for the PLL Original Sin spinoff? Question 3. What is the reasoning behind replacing the ebook manuscript for the original series over releasing a second version to allow the two to exist alongside one another? Question 4. What about a certain scene/moment/term qualified it for updating over others? For example, Allison is no longer sold a pack of Marbolos, but almost all of the girls' homes still use landlines. Question 5. There's a fucking typo. That's so embarrassing. This is what you did respond to me. Number 5. It says number 4. Number 5. PLL, as a franchise, has undoubtedly reach cult classic status at this point, and for all intents and purposes, functions as a period piece for the early 2000s and 2010s. Is there anything, in your opinion, that is gained or lost when period pieces are updated for a modern audience? Question 6. Do you, or did you, have plans to revamp the covers and contents of all 18 books? Thank you for taking the time to read these questions, even if you do not have the chance to answer. Hope to hear from you soon. Persephone Quill, at author P. Quill. As of recording this on June 3rd, I am checking right now. 8 weeks ago?
Shucky darn.
Okay, she has not responded, nor has she seen my message, which is understandable. I have about 150 followers on my Instagram because I stopped posting. I'm working on it. I swear to God, I'm working on it. I just have a really hard time not getting sucked into the current project as issued by a really poorly made Bridgerton costume at the last minute, okay? Yes, I made these sleeves, that's why you can see my bra. Whatever. I get bad tunnel vision. All this to say, go follow my Instagram so if I ever need to DM another author, it's not as freaking embarrassing, okay? Please and thank you. But while I let that message sit unopened, I decided it was time for me to review my notes for the original Pretty Little Liars book. Ah. What the fudge? Dun, dun, dun! So, in the summers between the 7th and the 8th grade, our 4 girls are having a sleepover in Spencer's barn. As we know. On the way over, they meet Mona, who calls out to them and invites them over to watch Fear Factor. To which they say, not it, and they run away. Already, tensions are high. Allison has a really bad habit of poking the other girls and saying things to upset them intentionally by bringing up secrets or uncomfortable topics that they might not want to bring up in a group. And none of them really know how to deal with it or why it makes them so upset. They can't wrap their heads around, but this is Allison, this is my best friend. Why does this make me so mad when she does this? So already tensions are high, and to break that tension, Allison suggests that they let her hypnotize them. Because it's like a fun party trick that she learned from her boyfriend of the week's older sister. All of the girls agree, and they fall under the hypnosis, all except for Spencer, who is still mad. She is still mad from Allison poking at her secrets. The 2 of the girls get in a fight and they run off. Spencer then comes back into the barn as the other girls are waking up, saying she can't find Allie, she doesn't know where she is. And by the end of the week, Allison will be reported missing. And almost everyone in town is questioned about her disappearance. Quote, from Allie's 2nd grade gymnastics instructor to the guy who'd sold her Marbolos at Walla, end quote, page 17. Did you catch the 2 changes? It's fine if you didn't. I didn't warn you or tell you to keep an ear out. But 1, Fear Factor. I think I made that one obvious. It makes so much more sense for a socially awkward girl to ask the cool girls, hey, do you want to come watch this weird show of a guy eating bugs? Thinking that she's fitting in because the show was so popular and so ever-present back in the day, not realizing that it's not something like the cool girls might want to watch, you know? And also, Fear Factor is back on air, by the way. I don't know when that happened, but I will take credit for it. Thank you very much. Speaking of this moment, I don't want to hear a single comment saying that, oh, it makes sense that Mona would ask them to come over to watch a single TikTok. She's a socially awkward girlie. She doesn't know that you're not supposed to ask that. Shut the frick up. Okay, shut the frick up. No one in the history of has ever asked anyone to come over to their house and to watch a single TikTok unless they're trying to murder and kidnap you, okay? No one. And do you want to know why? Because the format of the media does not lend itself to the investment of going to a second location to ingest said media. Now, the second thing that was changed, we get a reference to Marbolos, which if you do, I think I'm saying that right, but if you do not know, they are cigarettes, which are like very Marlboro specifically are really coming back into fashion. I'm not sure if it's just a fashion motif or if people are genuinely starting to smoke again. I don't know. Don't smoke. It's so bad for you. You don't look cool and it makes you smell like crap 24/7. Okay, what the frick? Okay, so even now, going to this deep dive of the plot, I'm not going to mention every single change that was made simply because we would be here forever and I value our time together. But I know you're a Medici, and to satisfy that need to know, I made a color-coded spreadsheet. It is available for free right now on my brand new Patreon. Bow, 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 bow. Yay, did I mention it's free? I wanted to make an easy way for you guys to access any downloads or files that I make or reference in these videos, because they do take a lot of work and I hate to just kind of have them in a drawer metaphorically. And so I made a Patreon to house all of those assets. Right now it is housing this spreadsheet that I made that is fully color-coded and annotated and has everything for posterity's sake. So this guy can never fully be erased. It also houses the newly revamped prologue of my book, Found Adrift, in case you want to know what it's like to read something that I have written. That's going to be up there for free as well. Be nice to me, I'm nervous about that. And it's also going to have printables for your book journal that I painted myself. Those are also going to be available for free for download here. Now there is also a $1 tier. It's called the tip jar if you're feeling generous, where you can access like original artwork of my book characters. I'm going to be posting chapter 1 of Found Adrift there. Hopefully it's up by the time this video goes out. If not, it'll be up very, very shortly after. And also some just printable stickers that you can print at home, cut out. They're based off my characters, they're based off Found Adrift. They're cute and they're fun, and it is completely optional. You do not have to do it. It's just if you wanted to. You could have more access to my artwork to support me if you would like. If you don't know, this book is not available anywhere right now as I work on a revamp of my own. I thought it would be a nice way to say thank you if you did choose to financially support me. Again, you do not have to. The important stuff is up for free. But of course, there's never an expectation for you to do so. Just you being here, hitting the like button, subscribing is more than support enough. You can hit the hype button on your mobile phone if you're feeling really, really generous. But thank you nonetheless for being here. So like I said, all of those changes are saved there. They're color-coded for posterity's sake. While that's there, we are here to question why these changes were made to begin with. Back to the mystery. What the frick? For full transparency, I was going to light these and have them smoking here in my cauldron, but the one I lit hurt my head. It gave me a headache, and I have a cat in here. So we're not gonna be doing that, but I would appreciate it if everyone pretended that they were lit and smoldering, okay? These are fake cigarettes, okay? Just ride the wave with me, please, and thank you. So after Allie goes missing, over the next 3 years, our girls go from crying every time that they're passing her street to relief that she's not there to reign over them and to play with them like her little dolls anymore. And slowly they grow apart and are no longer friends by the time we pick back up with them. When we do pick back up with them, it's 3 years later, and we start off with Emily, the day that someone new moves into Allie's house across the street for the first time. Now, her sister is in the lazy boy watching Dr. Phil instead of some animal videos. Emily still goes over and she meets a new pretty gay neighbor, and she thinks about missing her old friends. Even if, quote, Emily's mom had recently seen Hannah going into Wawa, the local convenience store, and told Emily that Hannah looked sluttier than the Paris Hilton girl. Emily had never heard her mom use the word slutty. Page 26. This is another, small change that I thought was worth calling out. The revamp changes it to, quote, and told Emily that Hannah looked really slutty. Emily had looked at her mom. Who said slutty anymore? End quote. Page 26. It's a small change, but I think it's an important indicator of what's to come, and I wanted to call it out. But Emily runs away from her hot gay neighbor, and she returns home with the feeling of overwhelm and a lot of conflicting thoughts. Next, we meet Arya, who's on the drive home from the airport. Her and her family have freshly returned from Iceland, where they have spent the last few years. Arya is really heartbroken about it. She felt like for the first time in her life that she had finally tried on a persona that kind of fit her like a glove, versus in Rosewood, she kept trying on the Rosewood girl, the artsy girl, the nerdy girl, and none of those personas really fit. But finally, in Iceland, she just felt the most like herself than she's ever felt before. Because to her, she was able to find like-minded artistic individuals who just understood her and her artistic vision, right? Her brother, on the other hand, hated Iceland. Quote, Mike had spent a lonely couple years in Iceland. He claimed that Icelandic boys were pussies who rode small gay horses. Page 31. In the revamp, gay is changed to chunky. When the family finally arrives at the house, Mike is alerted that the lacrosse team tryouts are happening that very same day. Instead of one of her parents taking him, they tell Arya, you know how to drive. You drove all the time in Iceland. Go. Take your brother while we unpack. Even though she does not have a license, they just send her on her way. And that's how she ends up waiting at a crappy college bar down the street from the tryouts, drinking a beer to pass the time. Now, I've been to many a college bar back in my day, alright? And I don't know about you, but there's no way in hell that you are not getting carded, even on a Saturday at 2:30 in the afternoon. And now, will they check your ID closely? Maybe not. But they need at least some sort of plastic in your hand. Are you kidding me? In a college town? Come on. A liquor license is way too expensive to lose. Let's be honest. I don't know. Maybe it's an East Coast thing. I do know that when I went to go visit my friend in college on the East Coast, we couldn't get into her college bar because neither of us had our passports on us. Because they didn't take IDs anymore. Because they had too many strikes against them for letting in minors drinking. So, and then when I was in college, the bar across the street from my, main campus, once ID'd a pregnant woman who ordered water. So, like, I don't know, maybe this is the Wild Wild World 2006, but that sounds crazy to me. But then also on the other hand, I did have a friend in college who did moonlight as a bartender Friday night before she was, like, of drinking age. I think she was, like, 18, 19. So, you know, it really is just, like, the Wild West college bars. Let me know down below. What type of shenanigans did you get up to in your college town bars? What the fudge? Why? Back to Arya and her underage drinking. Arya, she takes a sip of the beer, then spits it back into your cup because, no, duh, it's a college town bar. Who didn't ID you? Why did you think the beer was going to be good? That's my first question. But that's how she meets Ezra. He is sitting 3 seats down, drinking hard liquor alone on a Saturday. A red flag on its own, ladies. All right, take note. Ladies, gentlemen, and all those in between, take note. But they strike up a conversation, and he buys her a few drinks, and they both end up tipsy, talking about how they have both spent time in Iceland, specifically in Reykjavik? I actually don't know how to pronounce the town. So sorry.
Reykjavik.
At one point, he lights up a camel, offers it to her, and why the fudge is this in my hand? Jesus. But she says no, and makes out with him anyway, in the sticky, icky bathroom. So, not only is she sticking her tongue in his mouth, while his breath smells and tastes like butt mixed with whiskey, but they're making out, and every surface they touch is sticky. Ew! Also, red flag! Go make out in the car like a civilized person. God. In the revamp, the moment where he lights up was removed. So I guess we got that going for her in the revamp. At least she doesn't taste like unwashed butt. Cut to Hannah. Like we mentioned before, drinking wine, but instead of comparing social sites, they are sitting and, quote, comparing Vogue to Teen Vogue and gossiping, end quote, page 42, which is a much better comparison, in my opinion. Appropriate comparison, in my opinion. And also, anytime we talk about Hannah, trigger warning for EDs, like we mentioned at the beginning of the video. This is where we first hear about Hannah's struggles with bulimia. Quote, while hardcore dieting was sexy and admirable, there was nothing glamorous about eating a ton of fatty, greasy, preferably cheese-filled crap and then puking it all up, end quote, page 43. The first half of this quote is removed in the revamp, so now it starts with, there's nothing. Again, an important change I wanted to bring up. After Allie went missing and the girls grew apart, Hannah befriended Mona, and over the past 2 years, the two of them have significantly changed their appearance by losing weight, changing their hair, and changing their makeup and their outfit, and they have now become the new it girls of the school, as they say on the streets. The rest of the chapter, we see Hannah window shopping and reminiscing on Allison. She sees Spencer at one point and wonders what her old friends are up to. Not only does she see Spencer, but she sees Spencer going into a Kate Spade store as if it's like a Louis Vuitton store. And she thinks about reaching out to her to be like, hey, I'm so glad you don't have to special order those bags from London anymore, or from Paris, one of those. I'm glad you don't have to special order them anymore. And I called my friend and I was like, would you consider Kate Spade like a high-end order from another country, like fashion store? She was like, no. And I was like, wow, no, me neither. It's so weird. It's something that I didn't bring up earlier, but like, yeah, no, the brands are often not changed in the revamp. And so moments like this here feel very natural, of like, oh yeah, I could see that back in the day being like this high-end brand, and not a brand sold at Barnes & Noble's. But trying to imagine someone going into a Kate Spade store and treating it like it's a luxury, high-end department store in 2022 is really funny to me. Again, just that uncanniness. But continuing, Hannah, she sees her and she reminisces and she feels sad. She misses Spencer. And in an attempt to make herself feel better, her and Mona go to Tiffany's to go window shopping. When, quote, suddenly a swarm of Japanese girls crowded around the counter, end quote, page 47. In the revamp, the word Japanese is removed, just making it a swarm of girls. I think it might be a swarm of tourist girls. It's removed here and then also later in the chapter when it was brought up again. But Hannah and Mona use this moment of distraction and they take this time to slip whatever it was that they were trying on up their sleeves and into their respective purses. Hannah makes off with a charm bracelet and a pair of diamond earrings, which honestly I did not mention in the first half of this video. This one happened in 2022 for a number of reasons. But if you've ever worked high-end luxury retail, you don't leave anyone alone with anything. It doesn't matter if people come swarming in, someone else comes up, or you go, one moment, I'll be right with you. You don't just leave someone with something. You let people wait. So I just thought that was funny because a product of the times. And that training simply exists because of people like Hannah who used to do this. I just think it's so funny. Again, time capsule. Again, keystone of the time. It's just so fun. It's just so fun. Anyway, Spencer, when we see her for the first time, she's going out to dinner with her parents. They're meeting up with her sister, who's introducing her family to her brand new boyfriend, Ren. Quote, he had beautiful skin, high cheekbones, and almond-shaped eyes, end quote, page 52. This is changed in the revamp to say, quote, he had beautiful skin, high cheekbones, and soft brown eyes, end quote. A change that I thought was really odd when I first came across it, until later in this chapter. But first, Spencer's sister, Melissa, is away at college. She lives in her own townhome that her parents bought for her as a gift for getting into like this really high-end college, right? But when Melissa was in high school, she lived in the guest barn on the Hastings property. And now that Spencer is going into her junior year, it is now her turn to live in the guest barn on her own as like a trial run for being an adult. At this dinner, it is revealed that the renovations in Melissa's townhome is going to take a lot longer than any of them thought. Unfortunately, her and Ren were planning to move in together, and with the renovations taking so long, they now need a place to stay. And so her parents offer her, oh, well, you two can live in the barn while the renovations finish up for the next 2 months or something. They ask Spencer if it's okay, but it doesn't matter if she said yes or no because they weren't listening to what she was saying anyway. And they just say, it's a deal, you know? And they're so not listening that they don't notice when Spencer excuses herself from the table to fight off a panic attack that is coming on. She goes outside to try to calm down. She lights an emergency cigarette that she keeps in her purse, and she pulls all of the cash from her wallet and reorders it from smallest to largest bill size, which I know is supposed to be like, oh, this is like an unhealthy coping mechanism. But I read it and I went, wait, that's kind of smart. Like, if only I had more than like an emergency 20 in my wallet. Like, low-key, I do think that would help with the panic, not the cigarette part, the sorting the bills. I'm like, dang, maybe she onto something. Anyway, even though her parents don't come to check up on her, Ren does. Allegedly, as a med student, he gets a page that needs to be answered via text. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's how pages work, and I also don't know if you get paged as a med student. But what do I know? I'm not a med student. But while out there with Spencer, the little underage sister of your girlfriend that is currently inside, they share a cigarette. Why? God, okay. They share a cigarette, and she learns unprompted that Ren is half Korean, half British, which now makes the almond-shaped eyes to soft brown eyes, change from the beginning of the chapter make a lot more sense. We also learned that Ren owns a BlackBerry. Now that we've officially met all 4 girls, I think it is time to address the elephant in the room, which is the types of edits that are being made. We are only 4 chapters into this book, and already there's a very clear through line of the types of edits that are being made, which I have been calling the now we know better edit. Things that could come off as praise for unhealthy dieting, praise for eating disorders, things that bring up race unnecessarily or in like stereotypical ways, anything that makes smoking sound cool. Okay, now you're not gonna, okay, whatever. But all of this paints a very different picture to everything else that we have seen so far on this journey into Pretty Little Liars Book 1. And at this point, I was starting to feel like a gigantic freaking jerk for assuming the worst, but only a little bit. And we'll keep talking about it as we continue. We're now back with the girls for their first day of junior year, year 12 for the non-knowers. Arya has been obsessed with Ezra, who she has texted nonstop, but she has not heard back from since Saturday. On her way into English, nothing much really happens. She does see Hannah for the first time, which is kind of weird. It's really weird to see an ex-friend, especially after such huge changes in appearance and personality. It's like a little awkward when she says hi, but Hannah and Mona are both in Arya's English class, which just helps to highlight how out of place Arya feels being back here. She just feels like she doesn't fit in. Pretentiously, she keeps telling herself, hell is other people, except for Ezra, which is how she ends up thinking about Ezra again, when guess who walks in? Ezra, that's right. Okay. And this is 1-to-1 for the TV show moment, where he walks in, writes Mr. Fitz on the board, just to turn around, make eye contact with Arya, and dramatically say, holy shit. Which makes all the students start whispering, because obviously the difference here is in the book we also eventually get to hear his lame-ass excuse of, quote, I was afraid a bee had flown into my pants, and I thought the bee was going to sting me, so I yelled at in terror. End quote. Page 98. Just in case you needed more of an ick for this disgusting pedophile man, like... Cut to Emily later in the day. Before she heads to swim practice after school, she volunteers to walk Maya, her gay black neighbor, home from school to show her a safe shortcut through the houses. And no other reason. This is also the chapter where we learn that the sticker that Emily has in her swim locker is Liv Tyler as Arwen the Elf from Lord of the Rings, which I think is gayer than any pride flag that she could have been hanging and should have outed her as gay all on its own, personally, in my opinion, okay? But I digress. After Emily walks Maya home, before they part ways, they kiss each other on the cheeks one too many times and a little too close to the mouth, and for some reason Emily can't seem to remember what happened on swim practice the rest of the day. I need to take my meds, hold on. But yeah, for some strange reason she just can't remember what happened at swim practice that day. No reason, okay? She just had a rough day. Anyway, that evening we catch up with Spencer during and after field hockey practice. So during, what we learn is that the new head coach is Ian, who is Melissa's ex-boyfriend, who Spencer violently made out with 2-3 years ago. And she never said anything to Melissa about it, which she thought she was in the clear about. First, because Allie, who was the only person who knew, Allie went missing. And then second, Melissa and Ian broke up, and Ian supposedly moved to California. But now he is back and is her head coach and is also kind of like, hey Spencer. So, smells like trouble to me. So now he's back, and now A is in Spencer's bedazzled sidekick, threatening to expose the secret to everyone. This is all made significantly worse when Spencer goes home later that night, and she is so sore she can barely walk. She decides she's gonna strip down to her sweaty sports bra, granny panties, and just take a soak in the hot tub alone. And then Ren shows up, because of course he does. Now, Spencer is the one to tell him, no, it's fine, like, hop in, like, you were gonna hop in anyway. That's why it was on. But he's a full-grown man, and he should know better. And he should know to keep his distance. And he should know to keep his hands to himself. Because when they're in the hot tub together and Spencer has a hard time moving her shoulder, Ren offers to rub it out for her because he's gonna be a doctor. He's a doctor in training after all. But that doesn't mean that you need to be sliding your hand under her sports bra strap for leverage. Keep your hands to yourself. Oh my god. Like, dude, go jump off a cliff. This is a child. What are you doing? Oh my god. She is 17 and he is in college. Dude, that is not normal. That is not okay. And if anyone is in that boat, why can't he date a girl his own age? It's because they all know better. I'm just saying. Anyway, and Spencer's the one to get out of the hot tub first, not him, because when she asks, where's Melissa? He says, oh, she's just at Wawa. And Spencer goes, quote, Wawa's only a mile away. If she's going there, she's just going to pick up cigarettes or something. I think she'll be back any minute. I don't think she smokes. Page 82. Why? Okay, another one to the pile. And now I know that this is completely irrelevant because we already know if he's hitting on an underage girl, it's because he's a bum butt man. But what kind of bum butt man doesn't know if his girlfriend that he's going to move in with smokes or not? What do you mean? I don't think she smokes. You're stupid. Are you sure you're in med school? Because you're dumb. Anyway, Spencer runs upstairs where she sees an email from A telling her, oh no, it looks like history's repeating itself. XOXO, go piss girl. And when she looks up at Allison's house, she sees, quote, a flash of pale skin in the upstairs window. End quote, page 82. In the revamp, this is changed to a flash of blondish hair. And this one I actually don't think has anything to do with race. Remember, the gay black neighbor Maya is now living in Allison's house. Later on, Spencer is haunted by seeing blonde hair out of like the corner of her eye. And so I think this was fixed in the revamp simply just to make a tighter story. After all, circling back to Melissa, the cigarettes are changed in the revamp for ice cream. Instead of I don't think she smokes, it is changed to, quote, I don't think she eats refined sugar, end quote, page 82. Has this been there this entire time? I'm irritated. Anyway, back to Hannah. Her and her boyfriend Sean are hanging out after school, making out like the teenagers they are. And this makes Sean uncomfortable for two reasons. One, Hannah's mom was there and is just walking past them making out and doesn't say anything, so he's like, ugh, this is weird. But she never once looks up from her cutesy teeny little LG flip phone because she's a workaholic. But 2, Sean has recently taken a virginity pledge. He wants to stay a virgin until marriage, which Hannah thinks is really weird because he's not religious at all, and most kids in the virginity club are like incredibly religious. So Hannah tries it anyway, and she tries to stick her hand down his pants, to which he excuses himself and leaves, which I commend. If someone's making you uncomfortable, you have every right to leave. But she invites him back for Saturday because her mom is going to be out of the house, and he seems very wishy-washy on the entire idea. He's like, I don't know, man. Making Hannah wonder, quote, if Sean was gay, he did have a lot of nice clothes. Or if he had a fear of vaginas, end quote, page 87. This was completely removed from the modern revamp. But this entire interaction throws Hannah back in time, and she just feels like, oh, he doesn't want to sleep with me because I'm the ugly fat friend of everyone around me. Because that's what being friends with Allison made her feel. It made her feel like she was the girl that boys never look twice at. After he leaves, Hannah's mom walks in with sushi that she got delivered for them. It's one of Hannah's favorites. But right behind the delivery guy also comes the police. And they want to bring Hannah down to the station because she was found on camera to be stealing fine jewelry from Tiffany's. Dun dun dun. They take her downtown for questioning, and Hannah's mom says, give me all the jewelry, I'm going to take care of everything, no one needs to know. Except too late, someone already knows. Hannah gets a text from A saying, quote, since prison food makes you fat, you know what Sean's going to say? Not it. A, end quote, page 96. Not it has been referenced a few times in this video. It was a mean thing that Allie and the girls used to say. Whenever a ugly guy or a geeky girl would come to talk to them, Allie would scream, not it, and whoever was last one to say it was stuck talking to this unwanted individual. All the other girls ran away. It's just a mean thing that Allison taught the other girls to do. The next morning, we catch up with Aria on her way to school. Her little brother Mike is in the back seat playing with a pss instead of a Nintendo Switch. And when her dad drops them off, he holds Aria back to tell her that he knows keeping the secret of him sleeping with one of his students is a hard secret to keep, and that he appreciates it and that he loves her very much. He also smokes a cigarette he rolls himself in the car, which is both pretentious and a little impressive, I'm not gonna lie. It doesn't make it any less gross, but I mean the dexterity. I'm a little in awe. And I know I've alluded to it, I don't know if I fully stated, but Aria and Allison found Aria's dad making out with a young woman in a car one day. The car's like half parked in a bush, and turns out it's someone that Aria knows, because it's one of his grad students, and every year he holds a mixer for his grad students at his house for them to meet each other, for them to meet his family. And even at that mixer, Aria was already worried that something was happening with Meredith and Byron, because Meredith went out of her way to talk to Aria and Aria's mom multiple times, and Aria's like, this is really weird. I'm just here to hold this hors d'oeuvre tray and make sure people have napkins and coasters. Why are you talking to me so much? And I think that's very weird. That's so weird. That's like weirdo behavior. Oh my god. I really hope in a later book we find out why Meredith is so weird. And after this conversation with her dad about his relationship with one of his students, Aria goes into school and beelines it straight to Ezra to talk about his relationship as teacher and student. And this is one of my favorite things that I wish the show did correctly. This parallel. The kitty has arrived. Do you have thoughts? Beautifully said. Thank you so much. But this parallel between Aria and... Good job. But this parallel between Aria finding her dad abusing one of his students to then Aria being abused by one of her teachers is such a, like... It is such a disgusting, juicy parallel that I wish the show did right and didn't treat like romance. It's awful. And it's juicy and it's compelling. And they treat it like, oh my god, they're in love. They're not in love. God. Anyway, Ezra tells her no in the worst way possible. He tells her that she is like the girl of his dreams, but it's wrong of them to be together, and that he would get in huge trouble if they got found out. And when she says no one would find out, he considers it for way too long. Way too long. He literally does everything that a trusted adult would never do to a child who is confessing having romantic feelings for them. But whatever, he says no, and she leaves heartbroken. Cut to Emily after school before swim practice. She runs into Maya, who asks her to go on an adventure. And Emily has got it bad, so of course she says yes, okay, fine, let's go. And they go on a small hike, I guess you could put it, maybe like a nature walk, with a small creek, and it leads up to a small waterfall with a pool of water in front of it. They go for a swim in their underwear already. Emily is like red in the face, like, oh my god, she's in a wet bra, I'm gonna explode. And they swim around and they end up snuggled up together behind, in a small cave behind the waterfall, right? Emily confesses about Allison, how she went missing, how they were very, very close, and how she misses her. And something about that makes Maya confess that she wants to break up with her long-distance boyfriend because she doesn't think that she likes boys. To which Emily gets really flustered and doesn't know what to say. And when she hears boys above her on the walking path, one of them being Mike, Arya's brother, she ends up saying nothing and running away, being like, I need to go pick up my sister from school, guys, goodbye. Which hurts Maya's feelings because it comes off incredibly homophobic. But then when Maya gets out of the pool and she's in like her wet undergarment, Emily and the boys all fall silent and are just like, wow. And I'm just like, Emily, come on. You can't run away from the pretty girl and then stare at the naked pretty girl. Come on. Anyway, back with Hannah, she and Mona are hanging out at the local country club, eating salads with no dressing, which is crazy. You're just munching on raw lettuce. What are you doing? And they're judging everyone around them, trying to guess who at the club for the day has had the most work done. Hannah is also trying to be very, very careful and not tell Mona about getting in trouble and getting brought down to the police station, as per her mom's orders. But she ends up having to tell her anyway, because the arresting officer is there at the country club playing golf, and Mona is catcalling him from their balcony, specifically drawing his attention to the two of them. So Hannah has to confess, and when she finally confesses, she skips out all of the details with the excuse, I have to go walk my dog, she's waiting for me, I gotta go, and I have to bring my mom these sweet potato fries I promised I'd bring her, I'm late, goodbye. And she runs away. And on the entire drive home, trigger warning again, in the entire drive home, she ends up gorging herself on the extra large order of sweet potato fries. And it's a very visceral experience, hearing her talk about needing to comfort herself and then being filled with so much shame it's making her pants cut into her. It's just such a very vulnerable thing to read. And personally, I don't have firsthand experience with an ED specifically. Not saying that I have a healthy relationship with food in the slightest, especially as a disabled individual. It's complicated and it's hard. So I can't speak on if this is a perfect representation of what bulimia feels like or what it's like to experience it. I really can only speak on the outside looking in, and this doesn't feel very performative to me. There's something about it that feels very honest, to the point where as I'm reading it, it feels like, oh, I shouldn't be here for this. Oh, I need to step out. It gives me that same feeling. I shouldn't see someone going through this. This is a private matter for them that they need to deal with, you know? And that is something that I think this book does very well, honestly. This level of vulnerability and shame is something very real and something that teens deal with and can sympathize with. I knew a lot of kids growing up who did struggle with bulimia, which is also why I think that this sounds so familiar. And I had a lot of friends who also suffered with anorexia. And I just appreciate that this book doesn't pull its punches for things like this, because teens deserve to feel seen, and this is something that teens go through, and fiction is a safe place for people to not feel alone. I just appreciate it, especially because even in the original version, even though it doesn't pull its punches, it never glorifies this. It never glorifies eating disorders. It does talk about them as if it is something to be shameful and embarrassed of, because it's not healthy. It is a form of self-destruction. It is a form of self-harm, and Hannah is aware that she's doing that to herself and she can't stop. And I think having that outside looking in is like, oh, it's normal to not be able to stop, and it's normal, like, I need to ask for help for this. Now keep in mind, I'm only talking about book 1 because I've only read book 1 so far. I do have book 2 locked and loaded in my Libby app, and I've started it, but I haven't finished it. So I don't know if she asks for help. I hope that she does. I really love the character of Hannah. And I am curious. I don't think that that's the right word to use here, but it's the only word I really have. I'm curious if any of you have first or secondhand experience experiencing something similar, and if you have read the book. Big caveat, and if you have read the book. If you're willing to share your experience, what it's like reading this. If it's accurate, if it does more harm than good, because I don't know. In a safe way, of course, please always put yourself first. Please put yourself first. If you are willing and able to, in a safe way, share, I would love to hear. But please put your safety first. Thank you. Anyway, next we bounce back to Spencer. There's a lot of bouncing around here. Who has gotten home from field hockey practice again, and she has received her PSAT scores in the mail, where she scored, quote, a 2350 out of 2400, page 124. This was changed in the revamp to be 1490 out of 1520. If you are not American, don't worry about it too much. The SAT is a test we take in high school to help get into a prestigious college, and she took the official practice version of the test, which can like help with scholarships if you decide to take it. It's low-key being phased out, being completely honest. Anyway, all you need to know that the score is a very, very big deal in her family, and that night, when they're all going around the table trying to one-up another to figure out who the star of the family is, which is a title that they give to the most accomplished person, the person who did the most in their life for the day, she's really excited to tell them. They almost skip her entirely, giving the family star to Melissa, but she butts in and she announces her test scores, and her parents offer to get her anything she wants. Is there an expensive purse? Is there jewelry? Is there anything that she's had on her wish list forever that she thought was too expensive? Now is the time to ask for it, because they will get it for her. Apparently when they did this for Melissa, when she got her PSAT scores back, they let her go to auction and bid on a first edition signed copy of a famous book. So money really is no object here, all this to say. But instead of asking for any riches or anything, instead, Spencer asks, can she please move into the barn the way she was supposed to before Melissa and Ren showed up? To which her parents say, if that's what you want, that's what you shall have, forcing Melissa and Ren to move back into her childhood bedroom for the month or two that they're staying there. Tensions are on a rise. As we continue following our girls through their stories, Aria tries to be sultry and artsy during an English presentation, which Ezra cut short. We know it's because it makes him uncomfortable in like the wrong way, but she doesn't know that. And this leads to her getting another message telling her, hey, go ask your dad for advice about how to get a teacher to sleep with a student, which is crazy. We see Emily in swim practice. Her boyfriend is trying to be flirty, but she can't stand the feeling of his hands on her skin at all, and they get into a fight in front of everyone because at swim practice she is faster than he is. She ends up lapping him during warm-up laps, which after the not touching thing is just really embarrassing. He gets mad, yells, up and leaves, a whole thing. And now she really can't stop thinking about, man, I really want to break up with him the same way Maya broke up with her boyfriend. I wonder why. No reason in particular, just saying. And honestly, this book is so hard to summarize because so much happens and also nothing happens as we bounce back and forth between all four girls all at the same time. For example, we see Hannah try to get Sean to come over again, but he can't because of a V-Club meeting, and she takes it very hard. And right after that, she gets a letter in the mail from A telling her, oh, looks like Sean doesn't like you best. Just like your own dad. And attached is a newspaper clipping that celebrates her future stepsister and all of her accomplishments, with a picture of Hannah's dad, his fiance, and her daughter. And that's how she finds out that her dad has been engaged for a while and has not told her yet. So that's not good. And this makes her think back to the first time she met Kate and how inferior she felt and how poorly it went. And this makes her want to purge all of those feelings out of her to make them go away. Technically, all that happens is she calls her boyfriend, she gets mail, and then she cries. That's it. But there's so much emotional weight that happens, and there's so many feelings that happen, and it makes you love Hannah so much. I love Hannah. I know. And that's mainly how the middle of the book really goes, where a lot of emotional stuff happens, but not a lot of like physical stuff happens, while continuously bouncing between all four girls. And to summarize it, it feels kind of repetitive to be like, cut here, bounce back there, and we're back over here. But I will say in practice, I do think it is a very effective way to build on the themes that all the girls are dealing with without like hammering it into your head. This is what the girls are dealing with. You know what I mean? And also at this point in the book, in the middle section, there's not a lot of dramatic changes happening to the text. The biggest changes that happen in this middle section is genuinely just like the names of technology. In the original, each girl has a unique cell phone, which is really cool. Spencer has Bedazzled Sidekick, Arya has a Trio, Emily has Nokia, and Hannah has a little BlackBerry. And I knew that from memory, baby. I didn't have to look at my notes for that, because that's how often these girls are on their phones and how much personality it brings to them. I'm so sad that in the revamp, we learned that Arya and Spencer both have iPhones, but that's it. We don't learn about the other girl. It's just phone. Phone, her phone. Shut up. I hate that. And I know Mike's Mike talks a lot in his Gossip Girl recap videos. He talks a lot about how fun phones used to be and how much personality they would give characters and how like interesting it was to see everyone with their unique little phone and how that's been washed away. And I wholeheartedly agree. And I know if you're watching me, you've probably watched him, but if you haven't, oh baby, you gotta watch it. It's so good. Like I genuinely couldn't agree more. And when reading the original versus the revamp, in the revamp, you could almost feel like there was personality missing with her phone, and nothing else. You could feel the personality was missing, but you don't know why. And now reading the original, it's like, oh, that's why, because they are all unique and they all handle their phone differently. And it's just cool. Technology used to be cool. Skipping a couple chapters in order to not sound repetitive, we're going to jump to the Friday night that I told you about however long ago, okay? And instead of jumping around from girl to girl, I'm just going to take you through each girl's night individually. Just know that all these things are happening simultaneously, and we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? Starting with Spencer. So she spends her Friday night at home instead of going to the massive field party. And she's enjoying her new barn. She's moved in. And instead of resetting Netflix, because that makes sense, she's resetting a TiVo, which is a DVR. If you don't know, a DVR is a device that lets you record shows. You set it for the time block for when your show comes on, and it will remember that time slot, it will record it, and then you can watch it back later. It's a really cool invention, and a lot of TVs still do this. My parents still do this because their shows come on while they're at work, and then they get to watch them at night after dinner. Like, it's handy. And the reason why Spencer is doing it is because all of her favorite programs are on BBC America. Yeah, she's probably missing her favorite shows live. Like, safe to say. The way that this not only makes so much more sense than resetting Netflix, whatever the frick that means, this shows so much more of her personality than we are ever told about in the revamp version. And also the fact that she spends the night relaxing in some teeny tiny sweatshorts and a cropped snug little baby tee on the off chance that Ren might show up at her door also says a lot about her. But the fact that he shows up says a crap ton more about him, okay? I want to make that very clear. Because I hate to say that, I'm like, dang, she kind of a smart cookie for that, because it sounds like I'm praising her for trying to sleep with her sister's boyfriend. I'm not. With any other people. Oh, damn, kind of a smart cookie. That was a good read. Alright, just saying. I'm just saying. Because at the same time, that's a full-grown man. He shouldn't be here, and yet show up he does, okay? And if anything, I think it's a great example of why it's on the adults to set those boundaries and be like, hey, I'm not gonna show up to my girlfriend's little sister's underage dorm room, essentially, in the middle of the night, under the cover of darkness while my girlfriend's asleep. Ren, I'm gonna beat you with this microphone. That's all I gotta say. Anyway, he asks her for a tour of the barn because he never got to see it, according to him, and history does end up repeating itself because they do end up making out in her walk-in closet. She ends up with her shirt and bra off, and for some freaking reason, in the middle of this makeout session, Ren decides, I have to piss, and he goes to the bathroom. What do you mean? But whatever. But this allows for a half-naked Spencer to go check on her computer, which has been pinging at her with a bunch of iMessages, saying, quote, I told you kissing your sister's boyfriend is wrong. And she has like 50 of them. End quote, page 213. What do you think, mama? And Ren then comes out of the bathroom and he tries to wrap himself up around Spencer and she tries to push him off, but it's too late. We turn around and there, standing in the doorway, is Melissa. Dun dun dun. Melissa's standing there in the doorway with a half-smoked cigarette in her hand. To which she takes one last drag before flicking it to the side and going, Ren, come on. The way her walking in on them put a giant pit in my stomach when I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything. And also like, I'm sorry. Oh my god, it's so good. It's also It's also a great callback to Ren not knowing whether or not Melissa smokes, because apparently even in like her fat butt nap, she still like woke up, ugh, I need a smoke break. Ren, you worthless full-grown man. Oh my god. But my poor girl Spencer, she is left on the floor in tears, alone, questioning all of her life choices. I feel so bad. So sad. I know. Now, the rest of the girls are spending their Friday night at Noah Kahan's field party. First, we're going to talk about Emily, who is technically grounded because she skipped swim practice to go hang out with Maya. And after that, then told her parents that she wants to quit the swim team. So she's really only allowed to go because her parents called Ben and asked him to take her, but they don't know that they're in a fight. So he does go. He picks her up and he takes her, but it's awkward. It's awkward all around. They're hoping that he's gonna like talk some sense into her, make her join the swim team again, and stop talking to Maya because they don't like her family's lifestyle. Their lifestyle that's a little bit more of the urban variety. They're racist. And this is like slow dripped throughout the book of Emily's parents having a problem with Maya and her family, until Emily figures it out and is quite rightfully pissed off, especially because her parents try to make it sound like Maya's family is bumping music at 3 a.m., taking shots of Hennessy, smoking blunts on the lawn when they're an upstanding family of the community. Like, in reality, Maya's dad is a civil engineer and her mom is a nurse and her brother's a tennis prodigy. And the reason they moved to Rosewood is because they're building a tennis court in their backyard to give their son the best chance of getting a tennis scholarship to go to a good college. Because they're good parents, from what we hear. And so Emily's parents are being racist, but they don't even have anything racist to point at. They're just being racist to be racist, which is crazy. Anyway, Ben agrees to take Emily to this party, but he's still mad, tension's high, they're not talking, and he ends up abandoning her the second they get to the party. While alone, Emily comes across Arya, and they almost reveal that they've both been getting harassed by A, but they're still so worried about, do you know my secret? I don't want you to know, so they can't have that conversation with full transparency. And as quickly as that moment comes on, the moment's gone and Arya's gone. And this happened like a few times throughout the book where these girls are almost talking to one another, but they're still so scared about their secrets getting out that they just keep isolating themselves from everyone around them. And it's genuinely kind of sad to see, but we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. Back to Emily. She ends up finding Maya, and the two of them, they take a big old bottle of Jack Daniels and they have a private moment in this vintage photo booth that the Khans keep on the property for their kids to have parties with. They pull it out for parties. They usually have it in like the basement. And in that photo booth, Maya confesses the other reason why her parents moved them all the way across the country from California to Rosewood. And it's not just because of her brother. It's because Maya has been struggling with self-harm. And she shows Emily all the scars on her arms. And Maya confesses that her parents thought maybe moving to a small town, it's quiet, she can make new friends, and living a slower life would help with her mental health. Very sweet. And Emily does respond to this a lot better than she did the gay confession, I will say. And Emily ends up admitting a secret all of her own, and she tells Maya that she stood up to her parents and told them that she didn't want to continue with swim team, and she tells Maya, I want to break up with Ben, I want to live a different life. And it's a much smaller secret, but it breaks the tension between the two of them. And they have this little moment. Now they realize, oh, we're all alone, oh my goodness, we're buzzed, oh my goodness. And the two of them, in the quiet and privacy of the photo booth, they start making out. And the first thing Emily notices is she remembers feeling Ben's hands on her and how she hated it and wanted to rip them off. But when Maya touches her, she can't get enough and she just wants to kiss her more. And it's sweet. It's so sweet. And then Ben shows up and ruins it. He shows up, rips the curtain open, he has 2 beers in his hand, one for him, one for Emily, so he says. And he ends up throwing the beers at the 2 girls, calling them fucking DYKES. And this layer is intentionally not changed in the revamp of the story. And we will also talk about that at the end as well. And that's where we leave Emily for the night, running off after her homophobic ex-boyfriend. Later, we pick up with Arya in that exact same photo booth where she has spent the better part of an hour just taking photos of herself, trying on different faces. Some are cute, some are more serious. At this very moment in time, she's trying to figure out how to be, like, sultry, which, honestly, I do the same thing. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I also try on faces. And this is where Noah Kahan finds her. intentionally in a pair of wet boxers, in my personal opinion. He's been looking for her. Before this, he was playing water polo in the lake with a bunch of other boys from the party. He tries to give her a drink and tell her how hot and sexy she looks in these photos, but at that very moment in time, she gets a text from Ezra, naturally, and off she goes to the local College Row with all of its brownstone townhomes that were turned into apartments, all of them painted different colors. And low-key, it does sound like a fun area to live in if you're in college. And Arya actually remembers living in one of these apartments with her family until she was like 7. We can assume her parents either had her and her brother right at the end of undergrad or sometime during grad school, which I think is a really fun bit of world building that just kind of gets glosses over. It makes sense why Arya is the way she is, and I love that. But in one of these tiny little apartments, all of which are bursting with Friday night college life, she finds Ezra all by himself. Because it's a converted apartment, it has a bathtub in the middle where he keeps all of his books, and it's weird, and it's artsy, and it's a weird shape, and Arya is in love. And she is fantasizing about what it would be like to run away and to move in with him and to be here and in love. And it's so sweet if it wasn't so icky. Because, yeah, she is fantasizing about it, about how fun it might be, because she's a kid and she's playing house in her head, and she's a kid who's going through a lot and who's looking for some sort of stability, and this feels like stability, but she's just being taken advantage of, and it's crazy, and it's so good. Sorry. Anyway, they don't sleep together, and this is explicitly stated, but they do fool around, so to speak, in a way that ends with them naked cuddling. Which, personally, this is the most unbelievable part of the book to me, and I'm gonna be just completely honest, because these are two horn dogs at the peak age for bad decisions, and one of them has already proved they has no problem doing something illegal. IRL, they would have had sex. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying it's like a matter of fact, okay? And I suspect that in one draft of the book, they do end up having sex, because in this scene, after fooling around naked cuddling, Ezra goes to just take a normal but hot shower. What the heck is with the men in this book going to the bathroom in the middle of doing illegal activities with minors? I don't know, but it's weird. Anyway, Arya gets bombarded with a bunch of text messages all saying the same thing. Quote, Arya, that's some kind of extra credit. Love ya, A. P.S. Wonder what your mom would think if she found out about your dad's little, study buddy. And that you knew. End quote, page 206. This rightfully freaks her out, so she gets dressed, grabs all her things, and runs home for the night. And that's where we leave her. Lastly, Hannah. Sean picks up Hannah in his dad's new shiny BMW, and together they go to the party. Once at the party, Sean very quickly leaves Hannah on her own, which leads her to drinking a lot of vodka lemonades and smoking cigarettes to pass the time. Once they meet up again, she's already pretty far gone. And her plan this entire night was to take Sean to the woods connected to the property that is famous for people hooking up, and for them to finally do the deed. But don't forget, dear reader, he's taking the virginity pledge. So it goes about as well as you expect. They start making out, and she immediately gets on top of him, starts taking off all of her clothes, and he pushes her off. He starts by saying no. She doesn't stop. Shakes off more clothes. He pushes her off. And this is when he tells her, hey, you just need to respect yourself more. And this genuinely made me so sad, because he pushes her off, he tells her no, and she immediately starts asking questions and pressing him. And it's all of these negative thoughts that have been coming out. Do you think I'm beautiful? Why don't you love me? Don't you just love me more than anyone else? I love you so much. Why don't you want me? Why can't you tell me you want me more than anyone? And it all just comes spilling out because she's drunk and she can't seem to take no for an answer. And he tells her that, like, I have told you you're the most beautiful girl. I do tell you I think you're incredibly beautiful. I just wanted to save myself for the love of my life. And it looks like that's not you. And he gets up and he leaves. And it's just, I'm so sad for both of them. Oh my God. And he leaves her there specifically to cool off. You know what I mean? He's like, clean yourself up. I'm gonna go. Which is a completely understandable and okay response in this scenario. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to step away. But she does not take it well. And she ends up screaming at him, quote, are you gay? It came out meaner than she meant it. End quote, page 187. But he doesn't even turn around. He just keeps walking. And when she's mostly done crying, she puts her clothes back on. She heads back to the party where she sees Sean in the lake playing water polo with Noah Khan and a bunch of the other boys. And there at the edge of the water, she finds Sean's clothes neatly folded up on top of his shoes. And inside his shoes, she sees the keys to his dad's expensive BMW 780i. And with no prompting, she goes, grabs a stoned as frick Mona. She puts the key in the car, turns on the ignition, and off they go to Wawa for snacks. So sorry. And when they leave Wawa at the red light, they are revved at from a jerk in another loud car, egging them on to race. And race they do for probably a grand total of 2 seconds before she wraps the car around a telephone pole. Thank God they both got up and walked away just fine. And I have to admit how anxious reading this made me feel. And I don't know if it's because my brain's done cooking, but it's genuinely so scary hearing her turn on the ignition, knowing that she can't even walk straight, and hearing her try to drive and seeing the blur light. And I'm just like, oh my God, please, I am begging you. You, dear reader, watching this, please do not drink and drive. It is so not worth it. It is so not worth it. God, it's terrifying just reading about it. It's terrifying. But that's where she leaves the car, just wrapped around a telephone pole, and off she goes, and she has no idea how she makes it home. And neither do we. We see her the next morning, and she cannot remember anything besides being rejected by Sean and something about Wawa. And the next morning, she's trying to remember what happened the night before, and she's trying to get something in her stomach so she doesn't feel so ill, when, knock, 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 Officer Wilden shows up at the door to bring her back into the police station. Because, see, there was an anonymous tip that last night she stole Sean's dad's car, and then this morning it was found wrapped around a telephone pole, completely totaled. But she tries to outsmart the police officer, she tries to play it cool, and she ends up putting her foot in her mouth, and she admits to, no, she doesn't admit to stealing the car, but she does admit to drunk driving. So, down to the police station we go. This is also where the random drunk guy, who says his name is Brad, this is where he starts hitting on her, after he sees that her mom is there bent over Wilden's desk, trying to, work her womanly wiles. Now, we don't get to see how effective her womanly wiles are, because at this very moment, all the cops in the room get an alert on the radio, and they book it. Everyone gets up, runs, there's an emergency happening, and we will go see that emergency in a moment. But first, let's go check on the girls, shall we? I missed. First, let's go to Arya. Now, Arya is having a nightmare about Allie coming back from the dead and crying black goo from her eyes. Terrifying, disgusting. And she is woken up hearing not I'm the Bad Guy by Billie Eilish, but rather American Idiot by Green Day, which, in my opinion, feels more appropriate for no other reason than my own personal preference. And I'm willing to admit that. Anyway, she wakes up, anxious, scared, and this is the moment where she goes downstairs and she asks her dad, hey, do you think a ghost can send a text? Not a DM. Which is less unbelievable of a question to ask, simply because unlimited texting wasn't the norm right away when it came to cell phones. It usually cost per text, so a lot of families didn't get it till a few years later. Actually, the first time that I sent 1,000 texts in a month, my parents were both shocked and concerned. Yes, ma'am. And that was probably around 2009, 2010. And remember, this book came out in 2006. So anyway, the doorbell rings, and who is there except for Emily, of all people, who woke up that morning, panicked about being gay, and decided to go for an illegal bike ride, because remember, she is still grounded. And in her bike spokes, she found the letter where she confessed her love to Allison before she went missing, and that letter she has not seen since then. That is where her parents found her, panicked, grabbing the handlebars, and before they were able to stop her to remind her, hey, you're grounded, she hopped on the bike and just took off riding. And she rode all the way, full speed, to Arya's house to ask Arya, did Allie ever tell you a secret about me? To which Arya is like, no. Why? Why are you asking about Allie and her secret? To which Emily is like, forget I said anything, and turns and runs away. And Arya wants to try to talk to her, like, no, wait, hold on, what are you talking about? But Emily hops on her bike and rides away, and Arya doesn't own a bike and just has to watch her ride away. Ugh, sad, terrifying, everyone's stressed and panicked. And this does not help quench Emily's anxiety in the slightest. If anything, it just makes her more anxious that there's someone else out there who knows that she was so deeply, gaily in love with Allison before she went missing. And Emily is frantically pedaling, trying to get home. All she can think about is how much she misses Allison, and how in the first few months after her disappearance, Emily would make these little bets with herself, and that if she won the bet, Allison would show up safe and sound. For example, something like, if Emily didn't see anyone with their hair tied up before first period, that would mean that Allison would make it home safe. Which is just such a sad coping mechanism for a child who is just so clearly going through so much. And on her way home, she's still frantically pedaling. She's passed by a bunch of police and ambulances with their sirens going off and the lights blailing, and suddenly all she can think about is Maya. And suddenly she remembers last night and all of the scars running up and down Maya's arms, and how in that moment, running after Ben was probably the worst decision she could have made, and how it comes off homophobic, especially after such a vulnerable confession. And Emily, in that moment, as she's pedaling, makes a bet with herself. If the sirens stop before she gets to her house, then Maya is safe. Except when she turns the corner, all of the cars, with their lights and sirens still blaring, are all parked directly in front of Maya's house. And Emily, incredibly distraught, throws her bike on the ground and takes off running to find Maya, who, luckily, is running straight back to her out of the house. She is sobbing, but they grab each other and they're... And Maya tells her that the construction team that were working on the tennis court in the backyard had upturned a body, Allison's body, and that Maya's mom was there when they found it. Arya, however, has to hear this secondhand from her parents. We can assume that Emily or her parents called the house to let them know, to tell Arya that they identified Allison's body from the gold initial ring that she always wore on her pinky finger. It was a little gold engraved A that she never took off, but that they were still sending off stuff for DNA testing just to be sure. And in this moment, her parents offer her a Xanax? Sure. But Arya, she runs out of the house, she grabs the car keys, and she runs to the only place that she could think of, which is Ezra's house. Apartment. He doesn't own a house, alright? His apartment. Because, of course she does, because she's searching for comfort and security, and she can't find that in her parents because of her dad. Her dumb dad. So she takes the car, she speeds off, and when she gets there, she's met with a boiling, angry Ezra. In her rush last night, she had completely forgotten her phone, and she didn't think twice about it until she arrived at his apartment and she heard it going off again. Another reason why this scenario doesn't work in 2022, because I think very few people would go that long without realizing that they have forgotten their phone. And this is coming from someone who forgot her phone for about 6 hours on a 6-hour road trip. So if it's coming from me, it's saying a lot. Anyway, but Ezra tells Arya that last night her phone would not stop going off all night, and that he ended up going through her phone. Again, this wouldn't happen in 2022. That crap would be under passcode, okay? He tries to play it off that he was just trying to turn off the sound to get it to stop ringing, and that he happened to read the message when he picked it up, but we all know that that's not true. We all know that that's not true. We know that he picked it up, saw the message, and then went through everything else on her phone, okay? Whatever. No matter what, he saw the message from A about earning extra credit, and he ends up screaming and threatening Arya, which she tries to reach out to him. She's like, wait, please, like, I'm here for a reason. I just need to tell you something. Can you hug me, please? And he is just screaming at her, and he's just screaming at her, telling her to get out, and she expresses that seeing him so upset for the first time made her scared of him, that he scared her by screaming at her from the doorway, and that is so sad. It's so sad, and it highlights just how young she is, and she's just a baby. But she takes off running, she goes home. And then back on the other side of town, Spencer is sitting in her room, alone, smoking a cigarette, looking out the window. She's looking out her window to the next door neighbor's backyard where there's a tent to cover where Allison's body was found. And Spencer actually had to find out all on her own that Allison was found, because the two houses are very close together, and she's still really nervous when she hears like police sirens and ambulance sirens, because of course she is, because her best friend went missing, and so the whole hullabaloo scared her, and she wanted to go make sure everything was okay. But when she came out, she saw the police lights, and she saw the morgue van, and over the radio, she just heard the crackling of Allison. We found Allison. And not only was she, like, thrown into a physical state of shock, her parents saw her experience this, look at her, stick their nose up, and walk away, and I would roundhouse kick that parent. Oh my god. It pisses me off. This moment, I just want to beat them with a bat. Holy crap. In Minecraft. It pisses me off. Ooh, it pisses me off. Because all of this happens after her parents confront her for kissing Ren, and they are suddenly treating her as less than. This has nothing to do with us, you're a stranger to us, which is crazy. Not only did they kick her out of the barn, which, like, okay, yeah, they gave it to Melissa, and then after Melissa moves out, because again, they kicked Ren out of the house, but after Melissa moves out, apparently, Spencer's mom is like, nope, you're not getting it at all, actually. That's gonna be my pottery studio. Not only that, but they tell her to her face that because she's 17 and still their responsibility, that's the only reason why she's allowed to stay there. If she was over 17, that they would have kicked her out and changed the locks because her sister's boyfriend kissed her. I mean, yeah, she kissed him and she was interested in him, but, like, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's a crazy response. Even if he wasn't the grown man in this situation, that is a crazy over response to this. Her parents are fucking insane. Like, holy shit, dude. Yeah, fine, you can take her out of the barn, ground her, do whatever, don't buy her a car, whatever rich people do, but, like, yeah, you're not our kid anymore over kissing a boy that you just met is crazy. It's not like this was her fiance. It's not like they've been together 10 years. You met him once. It's been like a week. This is crazy. It's such a crazy response. Anyway, after her parents confront her, Melissa comes in and is calling her a bunch of dirty names like a fucking harlot, and it genuinely really upset me, okay? And then after this, no one in her family has talked to her at all. At one point after Allison's body is found, there is a faint knock at her door, but she doesn't feel safe opening it, so we never find out who it was. But then after that knock, from Spencer's bedroom window, she's able to see her entire family, like, leave, like her parents and her sister. They all get up to leave. And after that, Ren shows up, throwing pebbles, hey Juliet, because of course he does. And of course, because her family has isolated her, of course, she goes out running into his arms, crying, sobbing, because no one has comforted her about her best friend being found dead. That's crazy. Oh my god. Oh my god. Sorry. Anyway, I need to stop talking about it. Anyway, the final few chapters of the book all take place a few days later at Allison's funeral. Basically, everyone in town is invited, and also people out of town, like, fly in. And all of the girls are seated up front as important guests of mourning. And for the first time all book, they finally reconnect as friends. And I was like, hug, please. Oh my god. It just finally felt so good that after seeing all of this self-destructive behavior and all of this, like, isolation just because of the fear of the idea of the secrets that they have, it just to finally, like, have someone to rely on. Oh my god. This, I think, is how people feel about the TV show. I've never felt that about the TV show, that, oh my god, they rely on each other, they're best friends. I've never felt that about the TV show. They're friends, yeah, but it feels like they're friends of convenience, and then they're trauma bonded. Here, it's like, oh no, they're friends who finally get to be friends again. Holy crap. And they're also trauma bonded, you know what I mean? Anyway, it takes a while, it takes a moment, but eventually they finally confess to each other that they're all being blackmailed by someone named A, and they're all threatening to reveal their secrets to everyone who matters. And even then, they still do not admit what their secrets are to each other because they're still too embarrassed and they're still too worried. They still do not want to talk about it. But in this moment, Detective Wilden comes up to them and he lets them know that he will be talking to each one of them individually because he has been assigned to the case of who murdered Allison De Laurentiis. And once he walks away, all of the girls, all at once, get a message. Quote, "I'm still here, bitches, and I know everything. A." End quote, page 266. And that's where the book ends. And if you've seen the show before, I told you over the last, 10, 15 pages, basically the plot of episode 1 of the TV show. Most of episode 1. There are some things in book 1 that get spread out throughout season 1, like the Hannah stealing the car. But, for the most part, it's episode 1. Lucky for you, this video is not about the show at all, so don't worry about it. Now, why did I spend so long telling you about all of this plot in this much detail? Because, like I've spoken about, the changes that were made in the 2022 version refuse to acknowledge the cultural context of which they were written. And if we talk about what changes were made from the original while ignoring the context of which they were originally written, we wouldn't be any better. If we're asking the revamp to acknowledge and to consider and to take in 20 years worth of context, then simply so must we. And so, what were the changes that I didn't originally catch in the revamp? A lot of heckin' cigarettes. A lot of cigarettes. Now, this isn't the most important change by any means, but it was the most prevalent, with 13 references of cigarettes being changed in 266 pages, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it sure felt like it. And not just the word cigarette. No. Because do not forget, I cataloged every single word that was changed. It's available for free on my Patreon, okay? And I mean every single reference to cigarettes, period. Whether by name, whether by brand, whether by hand-rolled, every single one. There were only 104 edits made in total, with a fraction of those being edits in grammar, making cigarette references the biggest category of change by a long shot. I think I've made my views on smoking very clear throughout the video. It's nasty and bad for you, and these are completely fake cigarettes. You can smoke them. They smell like lavender and mint. I can show you the box. I was gonna have them appear in my hand, like lit and smoking, and stuff them out, and you just get the plume of smoke here. But the one I lit earlier genuinely gave me a headache. And I was gonna have the window open and a fan going because I have a cat in here, but they were so strong. I was like, we're not gonna risk it, okay? So I hope the bit still worked anyway, and if it didn't, lie. Please and thank you. But I just really wanted to show you how prevalent it felt like cigarettes were in this book, and how hearing about it so often, you kind of get numb to the idea of kids smoking. My partner and I have talked a lot at length about how, as a generation, we came very close to snuffing out smoking completely because we realized how nasty it was and how bad for our health it was. But then vapes flavored like cotton candy and pink lemonade came out, and they started being sold to high school children, and suddenly nicotine is back, and Zins are popular, and blah blah blah. It's just so bad for you. It's so gross, and it's so bad for you. But the girls aren't vaping in this story. No, the cigarettes are either completely removed or completely changed to something else. There's only one reference to cigarettes in this book, and it is the emergency cigarettes that Spencer carries in her bag at the family dinner where they meet Ren for the first time. In the original version, this is called back to at the very last chapter, where she finally pulls them out and lights them up because she needs something to do with her hands. But in the revamp, it's changed that now she's pulling on a stray thread on her jacket because she needs something to do with her hands. Which is so interesting, because why aren't the girls vaping if smoking was so prevalent in book 1? And I don't have an answer, but I can make an educated guess. But to make that guess, we have to look at the second biggest category of changes in the book, which you have heard me refer to as the now we know better changes. These are edits that include language that at one point wasn't seen as offensive, but now, as the world has gotten smaller, and as a whole, we've become more educated, it's language that we no longer use. Things like using gay as an insult, for example, or bringing up race when it's not relevant in any other way than to make something seem other, or not standard, or not white. Now, I'm not naive. I know that it seems like we are once again making a swing back in the other direction, where people online are once again using upsetting language. But I want to remind you, dear reader, that the loudest individuals are often that way because, well, they like making people mad, and they like being offensive for shock value. And I just want to take this moment to remind you that there are so many people in this world who every day wake up and try to put more good into this world than is being taken out of it. That is the person that I try to be when things are hard, and I hope you try every day to be one of those people, because we need you desperately. I just felt like that was important to say. The Now We Know Better category is the second largest, with 8 changes in total. And now I ask you, why might Sarah Shepard make these changes, besides to try to pander to a younger audience? Because of Emily. In the show, Pretty Little Liars, Emily is played by Shay Mitchell, a woman of color. And I am unsure if she was the first, but I know she was one of the first openly gay women of color in mainstream media as a main character, who got love interest, who got to be a part of the main cast, who mattered. And she was really important to a lot of people who grew up watching the show and who were growing into realizing that they were part of the queer community. And I think it's safe to assume that when you are at the epicenter of a global phenomenon like Pretty Little Liars, and you see the first-hand impact someone like the character of Emily, played by Shay Mitchell, can make, I think it would be very, very hard to look back at your previous work and to see that you too used offensive language that would hurt the people that you are now seeing be impacted by your work in a meaningful way, even if completely unintentionally. And it doesn't shock me that she would want to go back and change that language. And then we take that into consideration, partnered with the removal of references to something as dangerous as smoking. And suddenly we have a very different picture being painted about the revamp. And before anyone says anything about, oh, reading about smoking is not that big a deal, I'm not ashamed to admit, as a 30-year-old woman, my birthday's in 2 weeks, say happy birthday to me. As a 30-year-old woman who has no interest in smoking, I've never had an interest in smoking, while reading this book, these girls made it sound so heckin' cool. Halfway through, I was like, do I just want to try it just to see what it's like? No! If the camera's not straight, lie to me. God bless. Halfway through this book, I found myself being like, man, do I just want to give it a try? Just I've never done it. Maybe I should, just to see what it's like. Are you crazy? And then I'd catch myself thinking that, and then I would think about the smell, the lung cancer. I'd have to go into a gas station and talk to someone and sound stupid because I wouldn't even know what to order. And I went, better not, actually. That's not worth it. But the fact that it sounded appealing to me at all is crazy. And then I remembered that's how propaganda works. Literally, propaganda doesn't work by trying to convince you of something. Propaganda works by making you numb to something, and that just becomes your new normal. And that's how I felt about the cigarettes in this book. I was numb to the idea of smoking by the end of it. And like I said, if we start to take these changes into account, it's a very, very different image. We see an author who's making changes to her work 20 years later because she wants to leave a different legacy in her wake. And she might have gotten a little lost along the way, having a little too much fun putting in modern references without thinking about it. But there are more changes made for the better over there are made for the worst. And how can I say that in confidence? Besides being the one here who read both books and then documented everything? Well, we look back to the book. Who got the most changes made? Hannah had 29 edits and Spencer had 26. The two girls who I would feel safe in saying they had the short end of the stick in this book. A lot of Hannah's edits actually have to do with the language used around Hannah's eating disorder. And Spencer is easily the richest out of the four girls, and so the items and the brands that she comes across on a daily basis, they need to be updated to not sound out of fashion. And unfortunately, Sarah Shepard didn't catch all of them, which lends into the uncanny feeling of, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? But she tried, and that's why Spencer got more edits than the others. But then that's followed by Aria with 21 and Emily in dead last with 16. Most of Aria's changes are repeated names, actually, like her trio being changed to phone or iPhone. And Emily has the least amount of changes, which I think makes sense because a lot of her story circles around having to wrestle with the idea and accepting that she might be gay, which in my opinion I think makes that a pretty timeless story for the foreseeable future. Even if being gay is more accepted now than it was in 2009, we've still got a long ways to go, buddy, okay? And that's just in the US. Around the world, we got a long ways to go, And if we ever do come to that point in the future where no one ever needs to be in the closet again, even at that point, I still think the story is timeless because it's about someone falling in love for the first time. Her story becomes falling in love with a person who completely changes your worldview and opens up your world for the first time, and that's sweet. That's so sweet. So, now we know when the changes were made, what changes were made. We have educated guesses why they were made. Now all we have left to answer is, why does any of this matter? Hello, I'm in bed now. I have fibromyalgia and I'm very tired and my hips are killing me. And this is my video. I have Seamus, my emotional support cow. I have my emotional support water bottle. And if my cat shows up, I will show her to you as well. This is where we are. This is what accessibility looks like, alright? Anyway, this is the least flattering angle I think I've ever shown online. There are a bunch of reasons as to why this matters. The most obvious one is this is a great example as to why it's so important to own physical copies of the books that you love, so that 20 years later, no one can just change it to whatever they want without your permission. Which I agree, I do think that this is incredibly important, and I cannot stress to you enough how if you own something digitally, no you don't. You own a license to use said thing you own digitally. And trust me, I know that on Amazon, on YouTube, on Google, on anything, it says buy. It says buy, it says purchase, it says add to cart. You put your details in, and so it feels like you own it, but you don't. You're buying a license, and no one tells you that. That's why this was able to happen. So I cannot begin to stress how important it is to own something physically, to actually own it. But at the same time, that's not an answer I'm fully happy with. I agree, it's valuable to own physical books, but I'm not a fan of the idea that you have to buy every single book on your TBR, that you need these giant libraries to be a book lover. And I don't subscribe to the idea that it's realistic to drop hundreds of dollars on books all the time. It's not realistic for most people. And so what's the answer to that? So how do we combat that while also combating the overconsumption of needing to own every pretty book you come across? Personally, what I try my best to do is I try to use the Libby app. It's a free app on your phone. You connect it to your library. You put in your library card. You can register for a library card free in-app on your phone right now. Do it. Support your libraries. But I go there first, and if I love a book from doing that, I fall in love with an author, then I feel okay to buy a book hopefully, from my local indie bookstore. Because if I'm going to buy something, why not put money where my mouth is and shop small? But try is the operative word there. I'm not throwing stones, okay? I am also known to treat myself every now and then. I deserve a little treat. I walked today, you know what I mean? So it's not a perfect answer, all this to say. And I do think that if that is all that you take away from the scenario, from this video, like, that is a completely valid interpretation. I also think that there's something much bigger to talk about. I have brought up this video to every single person in my life. Every single one. Specifically to complain about the key turn on the ignition and how much it pisses me off, but also everything else. The conspiracy hole I found myself falling into when I got anxious about the idea of changing books on someone's Kindle. And I have been met with varying levels of excitement. Some people are all in. Yes, this is incredibly important. You need to talk about it. I can't wait to watch the video. This is important for you to talk about. While others are like, what's the big deal? It's just a book for teen girls, and an author's allowed to change their novel whenever they want. There's nothing for you to talk about. To which I say, first off, let's not pretend that teen girls aren't the tastemakers of the world, okay? Cut that shit out. We know that teen girls and their hyperfixations are what keep the economy afloat, okay? Exhibit A. And second, I agree. An author is allowed to change their novel whenever they want. I've mentioned it a few times in this video. Personally, I am in the process of rewriting my entire debut novel simply because I know that I can do better. I'm a self-published author who is learning on the fly, and I really cherish the art I put into this world, and that's part of the reason why I think this is worth talking about. This book has sold more copies than I think I would be able to guess. Personally, me taking down my novel and changing it to my heart's content to be a little better, a little tighter, a little neater is completely different than Sarah Shepard taking down hers. Why? Say it with me now. Context. My novel sold around 70 copies, which I am stoked about, okay? Don't get me wrong. I am so honored that I sold that many the first time around. I better see y'all in line. But even with that, I still feel pretty safe in saying that my book did not change anyone's life significantly. You know, and that's okay. But I wouldn't feel safe saying that about this guy. Pretend I have the book physically. It's this one. And not because I think that this is some profound piece of literature that's world-changing, but because it's popular. It's a numbers game. Like, I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if someone came out and was like, yeah, that book changed my life. It made me want to be an author. It changed my behavior. It impacted me in X, Y, and Z ways. That wouldn't shock me in the slightest. Simply because enough people read the book for it to be turned into a show. It's popular. And also, I think it's a very good book. And when something makes that big of an impact, to then go back and replace it, to neaten it up with no notice except for a single Instagram post that doesn't do a good job working as a notice, it feels wrong. It feels deceptive, in my opinion. Then to go through and read all the changes that were made, even taking into account the well-meaning ones, it still feels wrong. Because, as it stands, this book does a great job of isolating the new audience it's trying to bring in and the old audience that grew up reading it and that would read it with nostalgia. It has the worst of both worlds. And the worst part is that it doesn't seem intentional in the slightest. I think wholeheartedly that Sarah Shepard had great intentions by making an update for modern times. But by replacing her old work and not allowing the changes to be seen, it makes the overall product worse. If she had made a Pretty Little Liars 2022 edition, a special release, and allowed the two to exist alongside one another, we wouldn't have been here for the past 25 pages. I don't know how much that is in script, probably like 3 hours, I don't know. Hey, remember this from the very beginning of the video? So, the first photo I showed you is the first one I took while researching at the very, very beginning of this when I realized that the ISBN numbers don't match up. I realized, hey, that's not the best screenshot. Let me go get a better one for visuals. And Now, when you go to the website, there's this drop-down menu. A drop-down menu that shows the paperback 2022 version, the paperback 2007 version, and the ebook version, all listed separately, all with the correct ISBNs, everything matches up. I know for a fact that that was not there when I first started researching this, but I have no way to prove it. And it is very possible that I made a mistake, and it was there the entire time. I have no way to prove if it was or if it wasn't. But I think that the point still stands that it shouldn't be this hard to find out. It shouldn't be this confusing to know what version of the book you are buying when you click add to cart. I am glad that it's there. I'm glad the information lines up. I really am. If I could miss it, as someone who is frantically checking and double checking and cross-checking and checking multiple times within a week, if I could miss it, then the normal consumer can miss it. And that is still a problem. That is still not okay. It is still a little deceptive, in my opinion. And also, does it matter if it's on the publisher's website? Because who is buying their ebooks directly from the publishers? Most people are buying from a distributor. The fact that you can't buy the original ebook where most people buy their ebooks is just deceptive. And so my point still stands, but I know this is here, and I wanted to bring it to your attention. Okay? Okay. Back to me. Like I said, I have no idea if this book is still in print, because no one at HarperCollins would answer my calls. And I'm sure that Sarah Shepard had her reasons to do it the way she did. Whether that be it was the path of least resistance, maybe it was the most cost-effective way to get the story in hand, which can often be a driving force for authors. Or maybe, and less charitably, that's what will work best for SEO. I don't claim to know. And I'll probably never know. That's okay. I'm not trying to, nor do I think I could be, judge, jury, and executioner when it comes to defining where the ethical line is, when it comes to overwriting an original piece of work, especially when it's your own. People literally go to school for years and do hundreds of hours of research to answer a similar question. That makes my, 30 to 40 hours of research look like child's play. Because it kind of is. I'm just a girl who came across something that made her mad enough to make it everyone else's problem, because I saw it as a crossroads of a much bigger issue. Gen Z and Gen Alpha are probably the most decentralized generations we have ever seen. And I don't have the science to back that up, but it feels right. And if you do have the science, please let us know down below, or just follow me for a second, okay? We have seen time and time again that younger generations are often cut off from legacy pop culture. They don't get references that, back in the day, everyone would know, because they're no longer being exposed to it. How could they? This in itself is a dated reference, but a great example is Ellen pointing and laughing at a teen for not knowing how to use a rotary phone because they've never seen one before. No, I don't get your Close Encounters reference in Project Hail Mary because I've never seen it before. And how could I have seen it before when I don't have anyone who would have shown it to me? Nor do I have cable in my house, so there's no chance I could come across it accidentally. And even if I did have cable in my house, it's not like they're showing reruns during prime time anyway, nor can I afford to sit around and watch daytime TV. How would I get the reference? How? Tell me. We no longer exist in a monoculture, is what I'm trying to say. Which in its own way is a good thing, because people are more likely to be able to find a community to be a part of. And in a monoculture, it's much easier for someone to feel excluded. And no, it's not about inclusivity for inclusivity's sake. It's not about being woke. It's not about the SEO or the optics of it all. At our core, we are pack animals who will pack bond with anything with a face. And sometimes it doesn't even need that. So, okay, why does it matter whether or not someone can understand an old pop culture reference or not, or if someone's in the know or not? Because things like those references are small pieces of what build culture. And of course, it's not just legacy media in which this is happening, but it's the important one for this conversation. We all stand on the shoulders of the giants who came before us, and when we allow our newer generation to be cut off from that context, it leaves space for someone to take advantage. When you go too long not hearing about the negative effects of cigarettes, that's how you end up with vapes being sold to kids who don't know better. And I'm sure you've noticed that in this video, I've been censoring myself when it comes to curse words. That's not for the YouTube algorithm. That's for me. It didn't feel right to sit here and to talk about the importance of not cutting off a younger generation for the sake of optics while I'm sitting here cursing like a sailor. thus making the video a much harder thing for someone to show to their kids. Didn't feel right. I figured the video itself had enough adult topics on its own that it didn't need my potty mouth too. So, although by PG-13 standard I do get one